Can everyone just, a lot of boxes here, so if you can come off mute and just say that you're here, that would be great. And I'm going to start off with Mr. Livingston, who I believe is not here yet. No. Okay, Ms. Shanahan.
I'm here.
Great. Ms. Smith.
I'm here.
Ms. Young.
Here.
Mr. Kubelman.
Present.
Thank you. I believe Mr. Meeks reached out to me, said he's not going to be here, but if you are. No? Okay. And myself, John Kites, Chair, is also present, so we do have a quorum. All right, great. Now I'm going to move on to the public hearing, proposed sale of a portion of 30 Monroe Street, consisting of 46,994 square feet, identified as concept property lines as and when shown in a certain map entitled Zoning Location and Topography Survey 17 Chestnut, prepared for Sono TOD 2 LLC, Norwalk, Connecticut, dated March 14, 2023, and prepared by William W. Seymour and Associates, PC. A copy of the survey map is provided. Map provided with agenda materials. Do we have anyone signed up or would like to speak in regards to this item?
Yes, if anyone would like to speak, please raise your hand electronically now. If you're dialing in by phone, hit *9. We do have one person right now.
Please, great. If you just announce your name and
Doug, Doug Peoples, if you can unmute. Doug, are you there? I see him unmuted. Doug, we cannot hear you. He is unmuted.
All right, I guess.
Yep. I
don't
see anyone else.
Going once, going twice, 3 times. Okay, no one else, Larry?
No one else.
Okay. All right, so we will now close the public hearing and move to our next public hearing, which is for the PY49 CDBG Annual Action Plan. If anyone would like to speak to that item, please raise your hand electronically and you will be unmuted.
Yes, we have Diane Laricella. All right, Diane.
Yes, thank you, Larry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I really appreciate that we do still have the ability to come to these meetings virtually. It's been a big help for me. The reason I decided to, I'm waiting to speak on the main agenda items, but I wanted to speak briefly, especially with Brian there, Mr. Badoli, on this action plan. As you can see, this is not the first time where there is no one else or almost no one else that is coming to speak and probably even have read this document. Mr. Chairman, in order to open up the process for next year, even after this meeting, if there's a chance that there could be some rigorous or creative announcements of this very important document that has a lot to do with the future of our city. It's an important document, but hardly anyone in town knows about it, except for you all and of course the redevelopment agency. As far as the actual action plan, the type of action I would like to see more of are 2 things in general. Number 1, are there limits to growth? That's something that I really think that the redevelopment agency staff have access to helping advise you. Many of you are laymen, and there are lots of studies with the Regional Plan Association and national studies. Many consultants that we've hired, like ULI, who I have a lot of respect for, they've just been hired to do our affordable housing study. But the thing is, are there limits to growth in our city in light of some issues with climate change, water restrictions, et cetera? Are we planning to have, what action steps are we going to take to see how much is enough? And are there any kind of thermometers? The second thing that I would love to see in this action plan, and it still isn't, and I have an open request, is let's take a look also at our industrial history and some of the toxins that have been left behind that do affect the ability for our city to redevelop into beyond brownfields. Brownfields is a misnomer at times. It's a very limited term that's being used widely in Norwalk. But in general, for those of you on the call and the council, we have brownfields in the terminology that's being used by Redevelopment Agency and the Planning and Zoning Department that have not been identified, and a status of them. Many have been cleaned up either privately or because of orders by the EPA. But I recently had I participated broadly in the industrial waterfront zoning special study, and I think it was terrific that we had such a study. But unfortunately, the consultant, I believe, because I listened to the planning and zoning commissioners discussing it, I do not think that they have been allowed to properly determine in a map where we currently still have brownfields or polluted sites right along our harbor. So I do, and I know that when a redevelopment agency has gone out to get grants, as they have recently for the Webster lot, and I congratulate them on getting a grant to do studies for, which is part of my wheelhouse, doing phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 environmental site assessments. It's just for specific sites. And I think we need a broad-based status check of all the sites that the state of Connecticut had pinpointed when I worked for them back in the 80s. And there still are some sites that have not been cleaned up, and in my opinion, professionally speaking, are ticking time bombs. And so I'm not going to mention them tonight. I have been attempting to meet with Mr. Bedoli, who's very busy, and I have also solicited my concern with our health director, and I will very soon be clarifying where those sites are, because I have in the past mentioned them. So thank you for your time. I think that has to be part of our action plan, is our toxic legacy. That way we can be clean, our harbor can be clean, our multi-million-dollar shellfish industry can have less worry, and we can put those fields into good tax-based, we can put those brown fields into green fields that we can reap the tax base, the property tax that they really should be. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lorchon. Larry, is there anybody else signed up for the second public hearing?
There is not.
Okay, I will close the second public hearing and move on to public participation. If there's anyone that would like to speak to any item on the agenda, please raise your hand electronically and you will be unmuted.
Yes, we have Rich Bonifant. Rich, you can unmute.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks. I thought I was trying to raise my hand before. Hey, this is pretty cool. You can be like drinking a beer and watching a hockey game and pause that for a second and chime in on something you got going. Thanks.
All right, let me, oh, sorry.
Okay, no, I wasn't done. I was just getting started. Okay, the project on Chestnut Street. I just want to chime in on that one for a second. I don't think that the city should be paying for like the sidewalks and the infrastructure and the pipes that go underneath it. Because I don't think you should be wasting your federal dollars that came in a grant on something that this guy should be paying for himself. All right. He's already getting a break from the enterprise zone. So there's going to be no taxes. Well, it's phased in or however you formulate that. So he's getting a nice tax break with the enterprise zone there. And he's in a TD zone. You don't have to pay for too many parking spaces either. All right. That's all shrunk down. Okay. So you can maximize that out. So, you know, why is the city wasting pavement money on this project when that guy should be paying for it and you could be paving some other spot instead? Okay, there you go. But hey, thanks a lot. Nice to see you all and best wishes.
Thank you, Mr. Bonifant. Enjoy that beer, buddy.
Next, we have Diane Laricella. Diane?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and committee. Rich is a hard act to follow. Anyway, thank you for allowing virtual testimony here. I just wanted to comment on a couple of items on the agenda tonight. First of all, you're going to be speaking about approving the final fiscal year 2024 capital budget. As many of you know, it's usually a 5-year budget, and it can change from year to year. I ask again that this august body deny any expenditures that are still on our budget for any artificial turf field, any artificial turf playing field. Going forward, we have 3 in the hopper, and one received a $5 million at Broad River, a $5 million grant. So of course is not within your purview here tonight, but there are many more parts of these projects. And I have stated that I believe we have to have your informed vote on this topic in the capital budget from year to year. You have to have a apples to apples, cradle to grave discussion of natural turf fields that are well maintained and drained versus artificial turf fields. And that has not happened in this city. And I've been asking for years. Number 2, any automobiles and trucks purchased. I have sat through numerous public hearings and capital budgets over the years, and I know that the council does intend to urge our departments that use these cars and trucks to go into alternative fuels or electric, but they are hesitant. They're slow rolling it. They will only do it faster if you make them do it faster. And most recently, I sat in yesterday when the Board of Ed asked for a rack body truck with the Land Use and Building Management Committee. And there are plenty of electric rack body trucks that could handle the situation, but they have maybe not been looking at doing their due diligence because they went with propane, which is a fossil fuel, as many of you know. So those are the 2 main outstanding things related to capital budget that I've spoken about before, and I ask that you consider lopping it off. And then lastly, C1, under the 30 parking lots for the Norwalk Airy Lodge. The only reason I decided to speak on that very briefly is that I'm quite worried about the status of the Jason Milligan property that we're currently renting. And I hope that this 30 parking lots is not going to be in replacement of that site. So I just wanted food for thought. I ask you to ask serious questions about what the city is doing with the Jason Milligan lot that we're currently using for library parking. Thank you for your evening, for your listening to me, and have a great evening.
All right, Chairman Kites, we do not have anyone else.
Thank you, Larry. Okay, we will now close public participation and move on to administration item 1A, and that's the approval of the minutes of March 2nd, 2023 meeting. Would someone like to move that? Thank you, Ms. Shanahan. I actually have a correction that was passed on to me from committee member, Mr. Livingston, and that's to change the, on page 2, the 5th paragraph, to change WIVE to YMCA. So that's that correction. Does anyone else have any corrections, deletions, omissions before I call for a vote? Okay. Seeing none.
Could I say one thing? Right as we closed it out, Doug Peoples did raise his hand. I don't know if we can. He raised his hand right as.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that's fine. So actually, let's take care of this piece of business, and then we'll go back. Thank you, Ms. Shanahan, for moving that item. Seeing there were no other corrections, I will now call for a vote on the minutes as amended. Please raise your hand to signify yes.
Aye.
All right, abstentions? Let the record show Ms. Smith abstained. The minutes passed. Okay, let's go back, and I believe we have someone to speak.
He lowered his hand again. Mr. Peoples, if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand now. Okay, there we go. All right, please unmute. Yeah, it looks like he's still having problem with his audio.
Well, we get an A for effort.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. Moving on. Public participation is closed. You've moved the minutes, and now we're going on to what majority of you are here for, and that's item 2A, the FY 2024 capital budget. Item A1 is to advance the FY 2023 capital budget to the Common Council for approval with the noted amendments. Would someone like to move that item? Thank you, Ms. Smith. Okay, for you, those who have been with us for a while, you kind of know how I do it. I'd like to everyone to, when you're called upon, to go through each individual item, even if it hasn't been recommended for funding, just give us a brief being the key word, description of that item. And if anyone on the committee has any questions, feel free to chime in. Like there's a lot of boxes here, so if you could unmute and with your question, that would be great. I'm going to go out of order here, just because I know there's a bunch of people here with this one or two quick items, so no point in having them stay. So that being said, I'm going to move to Mr. Kleppen with planning and zoning. Bear with me. Yeah, it's item Planning and Zoning Commission. Starting with item plotter. Steve, are you here with us? There you go.
I am. Thank you for letting me go first. I'm sorry to everybody else who's got.
You owe me big time.
No problem.
Proceed.
Sure. So we actually have two items. We have a plotter that was previously approved for funding. We just haven't acted on those funds yet. We do have two new requests this year. One of those is a study of the Norden site. That proposal came out of the industrial zone study. Basically, the consultant team and the group that were overseeing the study came to the kind of realization that the Norden site was kind of so unique in the way it's situated, because it's kind of pinned between the railroad tracks and 95. It has no access to the highway. You have to access it through local streets. And given its large size, it really should be treated by itself. So they kind of recommended looking at it separately. So that's what those funds are for, and that comes to a total of $50,000. Initially, we thought of doing a larger study and then kind of looking at it from a transportation angle as well, like seeing if there were ways that we could perhaps, see about highway access. But that's really beyond the realm of like a local land use plan, and be something we probably would need to request and work with Connecticut DOT on. So that's what the $50,000 will be, specifically land use issues. And the second item is a follow-up on the zoning regulations rewrite. We had talked about this previously, I think. Once the regulations are adopted, we receive a static document from the consultant. What we would like to do is take that document and put it in a more user-friendly format for, the average resident or realtor or, business owner even, where basically this would be an interactive mapping platform where someone could put in their address into this. Up would pop up the zoning information related to their property, It would be linked to the city's GIS, so it has the tax assessor's information connected to that as well. And ultimately, the long-term goal would be we would get all of our historic building permits and zoning permits scanned and organized and then linked to this as well. So we could have kind of a master repository of information related to individuals' property. So there's two components to the cost. One is like a one-time training fee where the consultant would come in and work with staff for a few days to get the information organized, as well as train people on how to use the software. And then there's an ongoing maintenance cost that goes along with that. But those are the two items in a nutshell.
Steve, I don't know if I missed it, but the plotter, which you get recommended funding for,
Yeah, that we received that in a prior budget year. So I'm not sure if there's confusion, but we did. I think that was last year we received the funds for that.
okay. Okay. Any questions for Steve? No. All right, Steve, thank you and enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you very much. You too.
Okay, now we're going to go on to the police department. Do we have Chief, are you with us? Chief Walsh, are you here with us? Someone from the police department here to speak on the budget? All right, I'll let the record show Mr. Livingston has joined us at 7:22 p.m. All right, so we'll go back to the police department. Now I'm going to move on to the fire department. I know Chief Gatto won't be with us. Do we have someone from the fire department that's going to speak to the budget?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Assistant Chief Ed McCabe. I'll begin our part, and then Chief Conti is also here, so he will chime in on the second part of our budget requests. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee, for having us tonight. The first item on our capital budget request summary is SCBA face piece and regulator replacement. This replaces the current SCBA face pieces and regulators to an upgraded model. There have been several failures with the current self-contained breathing apparatus face pieces, causing the manufacturer, Scott, to issue a safety notice. So this money will allow us to upgrade all of our SCBA face pieces to the newest model and be able to retire the ones that we've experienced failures with. The second item is OSHA mandated turnout gear replacement. So all of our firefighters have two sets of protective turnout gear, a primary set and a secondary set that they use when the first set is being washed after a fire. The department has a very strict cancer preventative initiative. So as soon as a firefighter goes into a fire, when they return to the station, we require them to wash all of their gear to get the carcinogens out, which is the purpose of having the second set of gear. However, some of those second sets of gear within the department were older than 10 years old, even though they'd been inspected and serviced. When OSHA came through, they mandated that all of those sets of gear that were older than 10 years be replaced. So this money will allow us to do that and to get all of our turnout gear in the department under 10 years old. The next item is a replacement of rescue apparatus. Norwalk Fire Department has one rescue truck that operates out of headquarters. The rescue truck responds to all motor vehicle accidents. It responds to the highway, to the parkway, and then any specialized rescues that happen in town. So elevator rescues, trench, high angle, basically any condition that's difficult or requires specialty tools, the rescue truck rolls on. This money will allow us to replace our 1993 rescue truck and then take the current 2008 rescue truck and use that as a spare, keeping within our apparatus replacement schedule. The fourth item is a addition and renovation to Station 4, which is our station on Westport Avenue. The reason for this renovation is it will allow us to reallocate a company, an existing ladder company, to Westport Avenue. The reason that this comes up is that several studies and that have been done in the past for the city of Norwalk, most recently the Evergreen, but going back as far as the Tri-Data report and the Matrix report, have recognized Station 4's district which is Norwalk High School District, Westport Avenue, and out into the Cranberry District to the Wilton Westport line as the one district in town that's somewhat underserved for fire protection and EMS protection because it is only serviced by the one engine company on Westport Avenue. Doing this renovation and this small addition to the station will allow us to move a ladder company up to Station 4, placing 2 fire apparatus in that station and another 4 firefighters. And this serves 2 purposes. It'll allow 8 firefighters to respond first on scene to a structure fire in Station 4's district, doubling the manpower that we're able to put on scene currently. And it will also put a backup company or a redundant company in the station for EMS calls. So currently for an EMS call in that district, Engine 4 will roll as a first responder. Will get to the scene first and has the ability to defibrillate a patient, to give them oxygen, to treat trauma, basically take care of the incident until the hospital ambulance arrives. However, with Engine 4 doing 1,840 calls last year, commonly they'll be out on a call and a second call will come in. So when that second EMS call comes in or a structure fire, be whatever that second call is, now we're waiting for a fire company from Broad River or from East Norwalk to run into Cranberry and respond to that call, extending an already long response time to that scene. So this addition will also allow us to take that second company, reallocate them to Station 4 and provide some redundancy in that district. We feel that this is a fiscally responsible addition. It is basically just providing enough space for the extra 4 firefighters and the second piece of apparatus. And as far as the details on that renovation, I will let Chief Conti, who does our building, speak a little bit on that.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having us. Yes, I did a lot of research with architects and builders, and we basically, and Alan Lowe as well, we came up with a very fiscally responsible small addition out the back with no basement to just really fill in the back to have enough room for another office and living space to accommodate the extra 4 firefighters that would be there. It would also in turn allow us to renovate the building to, especially with the bathroom facilities right now, that we have some locks on some doors just to make it the adequate privacy for all genders. And it right now it needs a full renovation to make it right, similar to what we're going to be doing at Station 5. So this would be all encompassing, and it will allow for those companies to adequately exist there. The big point is that right now also with training, our trucks, typically when we have like at Station 1 and at Station 2, we have truck companies with the engine companies, and now they're able to train and they're able to cross train. And now we have enough, we're doubling the amount of people that are qualified for both types of pieces, where we don't have that right now. We have companies stacked up. Station 4, as far as the call volume, Station 4 is a little bit over 20% of our call volume, as is Station 1, which has a truck company, and Station 2 is still our busiest. It's about 35% of the calls. So this will better, distribute the resources and more evenly distribute the resources, and it'll also allow a ladder company to be east of the river, which is basically our choke points. Every time we have to go there, that's what slows us down. We're averaging our second due company there in the last 5 years to 10 years. It's pretty consistent. We're averaging about 2.5 to 3 minutes behind the first due company, Engine 4, that gets there, and that's a lot of time. And this will greatly reduce it. You're going to be arriving on scene at one time with 8 companies. It will also allow those 2 companies to begin at a structure fire rescue efforts and fire suppression efforts simultaneously, where right now with one engine company arriving alone in the first few minutes, they don't have the ability to perform rescue and suppression simultaneously. And I might add, I've mentioned the studies in the past that have recommended that the protection in this district be beefed up. And all of those studies have suggested an extra station. So a Station 6, which would involve hiring 16 more firefighters and would involve buying a new piece of apparatus and finding the land in Cranberry somewhere to put this station on.
realizing the economic condition that the city's in right now, and that those moves would be cost prohibitive, we feel that reallocating the existing resources to the existing building is really the way to go, and would provide the protection needed.
Yeah, and just one quick, that being said, what the chief said is we went with a full cost analysis with our conceptual drawing, and that's where the existing building, we can come in. It's basically, I'm gonna bring it up now. So we're talking really as far as an addition, interior renovation, it's 1,000 square foot renovation. It's very modest, and it's going to allow for enough room. So this was the working with everybody. This was the least invasive way to bring that station up to code, and to similar to what I did to Station 1 last year, where we actually upgraded the HVAC system to allow for proper ventilation. All of these things are involved in this. This is a whole package at once, the renovation plus the addition.
Very good. Chief Conti, do you want to handle the next 4 items then?
Sure. The number 5 is the shift command car replacement. So what we were doing is replacing our command vehicle as, appropriate to our 8-year command vehicle replacement. We're actually replacing our command software. Right now we're using whiteboards, and we have magnets, and we move things around with whiteboards, which is working very well. But we're upgrading to an automated system that actually registers firefighters, accountability system that registers firefighters on scene with computer software, and can monitor their air supply. We can actually hold an accountability report to find wherever, essentially a roll call on scene instantly through the air packs. It's far more efficient and safe. If we have to evacuate a building, we can push a button and evacuate the building. And even if companies from Stanford show up on scene, they'll actually be a part of the system. This is something that we've been researching for a while. New Haven uses it religiously, and it's basically the best of thing you can buy right now. We're transitioning to that. We were funded that last year, so we're actually building that right now as we speak. The new car is going to allow to accommodate. It will basically be able to accommodate all the new type of technology involved in utilizing this software. The Station 5 bathroom renovation, number 6. That again, as I mentioned earlier, that's basically, I have drawings and cost analysis to improve, to renovate the well-needed renovation, but to also allow for privacy, appropriate privacy with private bathrooms, private showers for all genders, all firefighters. Fire inspector vehicle replacement. We have 2 more pickup trucks coming in. What we've done is we've transitioned with our 8-year plan. With our replacement plan, we've also transitioned to pickup trucks, allowing, again, with our cancer preventative initiative, to allow for any gear and any tools that they use in investigation to be separate from the cab that they're driving around and inspecting vehicles all day. And the maintenance division, number 8, the maintenance division electrical upgrade, LED light upgrade. So that's been withdrawn because we actually struck a deal with South Norwalk Electric, and they essentially funded half the project for us, and we're funding it through the cost savings that were with the LED lights as opposed to the old sodium lights. And that's a cost savings of over $12,000 for the first year, and then for the second year and beyond, it's over $25,000. So that one has paid for itself already, which is great. So we were able to withdraw that. And for our building repairs, our normal $35,000 maintenance repairs, most of that right now is going to be, we have a major initiative to replace our overhead doors that are aging. And obviously those are vital to our emergency response. We can take any questions if anybody has any.
Yeah, I have a quick comment. I mean, I'm familiar with Station 4, just going back a few items. You guys have put a lot of work into it. I see it. I mean, obviously the price tag is high. And also you're buying the new fire truck, but I'd like to, if it doesn't happen this year, I'd love to see this thing get funded and recommended by the mayor next year. So I know, like I said, we've already spent money on architectural plans, and it'd be a waste to put all that money and effort to something that, and then not have it come to fruition. Any questions for fire before we let them go? No? All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Chairman Kites. Thank you, committee.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to go back to the police. Chief Walsh, I believe, is with us. Is that correct?
Yes, he's dialed in. I'm having him unmute now.
Thank you, Larry.
Chief Walsh, just hit *6 on your phone.
Okay, I'm here. Can you finally hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Hey,
thank
Chief.
you. My apologies. I thought Mr. Dossimo was on the meeting tonight, but he had an unforeseen obligation. He wasn't able to come on. Yes, for our capital request for this year, it is the normal request for vehicles and vans, police cars and vans, and the upfits, and the 2 outboard engines for Marine 2. Those outboard engines have well over 1,000 hours on them, and we're having mechanical difficulty, and that is our main vessel for rescue and responding to shallow water and such. So those engines are very tired, and we have spent a lot of money in repairing those last year. So they are in due of replacement. So those are only 2 items: are the cars and the vans, and the outboard engines. It is a boat that has 2 engines on it, so that's why we need 2 engines, and they average about high 40s a piece, $45,000 to $50,000 a piece once installed.
Chief, cars and vans, can you get a little bit more detail on that? Like, are we police cars? I mean, how many cars? Like, just any more specific on that?
Yeah, well, that's been a moving target for the past previous years. This year we found out we have not gotten a new police car since 2021 fiscal year. Ford has run into major production issues. We actually had an order of 15 cars ordered with Ford. In January, they advised us that they were not be able to fill that order, and that price went from $39,000 a car to $49,000 a car. So within the past 2 months, we recently went to the Chevy police package, and those are on order. So we're still working with cars that are 2 to 3 years old, and they have high mileage, and they're hot seated, what we call hot seating, 3 shifts a day. So they all have high mileage, and we're averaging 7 to 10 cars a day down at the fleet being repaired. So the police industry nationwide has been plagued with difficulty in finding police cruisers. The Ford Explorer is, I guess they're converting away from the traditional model, so they stopped making them, and there's 9,000 orders nationwide that they haven't been able to fill. So we're going to be able to buy the Chevy police package, but the price is continually fluctuating. So I can't give you the exact number that we'll be able to purchase, because even the upfits have been raised $10,000. So we're probably going to, that money is probably going to be 8 to 9 marked police cars for next year's fleet. In addition,
Are we
still?
Yeah, Chief, not to interrupt, sorry to interrupt, but there was, I forget the details, but there was a buying program through the state for the vehicles. Is that still how you purchase these vehicles, through some program? There's discounted rates, or I forget this, like I said, the specifics, but remember there was a process on which how you guys buy this. It's not like you just go to the local Chevy dealer and, order, order them off the lot, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely correct. That was through MHQ, and they are the state provider on the state bid pricing. But due to the fact that they primarily work with Ford, the state of Connecticut is primarily a Ford police package. All you see is the Ford Explorer. So when we went to the Chevy this year, because we needed police cars, we actually joined the Massachusetts Police Consortium for a small price of like $275. So we are in the state bid pricing. So we're getting the best pricing for our police package cars, but they're coming from Massachusetts instead of Connecticut.
That's what it was. Thanks. Any questions for Chief Walsh? No? All right. Thank you, Chief, for your time.
I apologize for the delay.
No worries at all. Okay, now
Thank
we're going
you.
to
Have a nice
move to you as well. We're going to move on to finance, and I believe we have Mr. Ellis with us tonight in Henry's absence. Is that correct? Tom? I caught you off guard.
No, I have an alternate microphone and I did it on the screen and I forget to hit the button, but anyway, we just have a few items here in finance. Chitsmay and Joyce Liu are also here to speak to their items, and the first one up is Chitsmay for time and attendance time clocks. And this one other thing, John, you mentioned earlier the plotter with Steve Kleppen. So what I had done when I sent this out, I left last year's approved items on there just as a reference point. So it was a one-time buy without a carryover. I just left it on there so that you guys could see what was in the pipeline and perhaps if they had finished or not. So anyway, moving on. Chitsmay?
So the accounting and treasury department handles the payroll functions for both the city and the Board of Ed. And we're looking to replace our time clocks. Currently, we have 65 clocks located throughout the city and Board of Ed buildings. We have around 2,100 Board of Ed employees and 900 city employees that use these time clocks to swipe in their badge, and it tracks their time and attendance. The lifespan of these clocks is around 6 to 8 years, and most of our clocks are over 6 years old. So we are requesting for the capital budget of $150,000 to replace these equipments throughout, city and Board of Ed buildings.
Okay. Any questions to that from the committee?
All right, then next up is Joyce with the IT side.
Right, good evening, everyone. We have a total 10 items in the IT capital request. 8 of them are aligned with POCD code. 11.1B is continue to update and modernize, maintain networks infrastructure and the city facilities. And 2 of them items are aligned with the POCD 13.2A4, use data to drive decision making. So out of these 10 items, 5 of them are continued IT requests in capital budget for the server, computer, printer, monitor, and other equipment that are fixed assets that will last for 3 to 5 years. And so even IT have a repeated request for each year, but it's on the rotation base of the different fixed assets. So I do have 10 items, but there are, the 5 items are the, the repeating. So I probably will focus on the 5 new items that we add on for this year's capital budget. The first one is data storage server upgrade is $145,000. We refresh the storage server on the 5-year schedule. The capital request is to replace the data storage server that located in one of our data center. Current server was installed in 2018 and it will reach its 5-year lifespan end of this year. The new server will have the up-to-date technology and flash storage with much faster response time compared to the older hard drives. So this request including hardware, server license, installation, and the 5-year maintenance. The second item is a citywide network infrastructure upgrade. That's $400,000. While we're moving lots of software and servers into the cloud, the existing network cannot handle city's daily operation anymore. So this project is to replace the 3 core switches in our data centers. This core switches support as a backbone, right? So it bridge all the computers and routing the traffic. Core switches upgrade the performance of a network, and the performance of network is increase our performance, daily performance for each employee. So a good core switches normally last between 8 to 10 years. Our existing network switch are more than 10 years old now. So we also, in this project, we will also replace all 50 closet switches for all the city locations. Item 3, citywide GIS project. So this is $150,000. This is for GIS street level imagery of $100,000, and plus the urban 3D planning for the ArcGIS 10 license, plus the base LiDAR map for the planning and zoning department. So our last street level imagery was in 2018, 5 years ago. So since GIS technology is now widely using among all city departments, we would like to keep a fixed updating schedule for the street level imagery. So the new street level imagery will capture approximately 500 total miles of a city street, and with a very high resolution of 100 megapixel. With that, we will have a very high measurement of accuracy. This quote, is also including hosting the imagery, unlimited user access, software with function tools that allow us to fully utilize the imagery throughout the whole entire city. Item 4, Health Department environmental and health software. This one. Okay, that's $110,000 for this project. So this project is to replace the health department's existing legacy health environmental software. The current system was built in Visual Foxborough that is no longer supported by Microsoft. The consultant that created software really stopped supporting the system, and now it's really this dated software is managed and maintained by IT department, but we are just barely keep it alive. So health department is looking around other city and town to evaluate a couple environmental health system, and IT and health department will use this capital request to put together a software RFP. What we are looking for is a cloud-based platform that can do administration of the following service: sanitarium, inspection, license, permits, plan review, reports, all kinds of registrations. The amount we're asking for is also including initial data conversion and possibly, if there's some money left, possible customizations. Item number 5. Actually, item number 5, 7, 8, 9, 10 will be repeating hardware refresh. So I'm moving on to the 6th item, an AV upgrade and to conference and meeting rooms. So we are asking $50,000 to procure and install total 5 smart board for 4 fire station and 1 for the community service department. We are also looking for a meeting recording equipment, so to prepare for future in-person meeting, hybrid recording. So that is what we are planning for. So that's the end of my item. Do you have any question? I'm happy to answer.
Seeing no questions. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Tom, for your time.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I just have a question. Are we looking at just this it's 1.3 million, 1.8 million? Is that what this is? Because I don't have a breakdown per item that you just described, or
Right.
1.1 million.
Yeah,
Is
David,
that-
I can talk to that, Dave. Oh, yeah, sorry. go
Yeah,
ahead, please.
I'd like to understand why we see breakdowns of other departments by project, but we're seeing just one lump sum for technology services. And I'm not understanding why that was done that way.
All right, okay, so this is what's done, like, always been this way because lots of the items they are all under one, well, hardware and refresh, and sometimes this, the budget could be, over for some item, but it could be under for another. So we using this to have this 10 sub items. So the sub item, like, change from time to time, but most of the time, like I said, 85% of those are most of it for hardware and software, and also for so for servers. So that's why we put in one big item. But if you go to the details, there is a capital budget detail for all the itemized for each one. It's easier for us to manage the budget because, lots of the software and hardware, like the value varies. So we don't want to fix for each from each item, for each of the sub item into the one into different kind of capital requests.
Right, so all the items impact the other items. You need all of those same items in that one line item that we're looking at 1.1 million.
Yes, and they are all going to be under one accounting GL account code. So when we do the purchase and when we do the procurement, then we will always know that this pile of money it was going to spend on this 10 projects.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and John, I actually had one item for my area in my management and budgets. Am I good to go?
Yeah.
Okay, so and just to follow up on David's point, if you're looking for all the detail of the items that Joyce mentioned, it should be in your budget book, the 2-inch binder that we sent out with the CFO's recommendations. And that dovetails nicely into our project. It's $40,000 for a digital budget book. So instead of those 2-inch binders, if you're tired of lugging those around and storing them, we are looking at software that's available out there that helps to automate the budget book process, both on the operating side and the capital side. And depending on the vendor, we might be able to, have the Board of Ed on the digital platform as well. If you're interested in seeing the type of technology that's out there, the town of Darien has one vendor, the town of Westport has another, and they're really pretty impressive packages. So instead of flipping through all the pages, 2 or 3 clicks, you can find whatever section you're looking for. You can print out whatever you're interested in, or if you want the whole 300+ page package, you can print that out as well. Though we will still do the binders on demand, I should say. There are some towns like Darien that do not print binders any longer. They encourage people to go online. So if this gets approved, we'll be going out and looking at the various vendors and trying to come up with the best package that works for the city.
Okay, see no other hands. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. And that's it for finance, John.
Great. Okay, we're gonna bounce over to the WPCA. Ralph, are you with us tonight?
Hi,
Ralph?
hi, John. I am.
Yes. How are you, sir?
Good evening, everyone. Doing well. WPCA has one request for capital, and that's in the collection system. And we're looking to, last year in September, we submitted a collection system master plan update to the Connecticut Deep as part of a consent order. And in that plan, they identified 3 projects to complete over the next 5 years. The first one is Hubble's Lane Relief Sewer, Catch Basin Disconnect Program, and elimination of the Ann Street Emergency Overflow. So that request that we have, it's like 10.85 million, includes those 3 projects.
Great. Anyone? Okay. Quick and to the point. Great.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Ralph. Okay, now we're going to jump over to Rita Vella, Mr. Badoli. Mr.
Sorry about
Brian
that.
Badoli. There you
Yep,
go.
sorry, I wasn't on. So yeah, I have two requests tonight. The one before you is related to the Webster Lot project and the South Norwalk TOD. And basically what's related to is urban core infrastructure funds that we need for design, engineering, and planning services related to advancing those projects. So that request is for $250,000. Will help us with some, traffic analysis and various studies that we'll need to do in order to provide you all the data and to help, the decision-making process move forward. In terms of the $350,000 request we have is for the Sono Wharf, the trail project. A lot of you were involved in the initial design efforts. What we had requested was $350,000 to advance those to final design. As I understand, that's not supported, but wanted to kind of, offer any, provide any updates that you may need or any questions that you may have.
Brian, seeing there are no questions for that, you mind just a quick description of the other two items that you didn't get recommended?
There was the urban core funds for Webster Lot, South Norwalk, and then the Sono Wharf. Those are the only two we had for capital.
What's the affordable housing, Sono train, roadway, and infrastructure funds with DECD 3 million? What's sorry. What was that?
They appear to be, they appear to be previously funded capital projects, Brian, that you're not requesting new funding for, but projects that you have in the hopper.
Apologize.
Yes, I don't have that in front of me, so yeah.
Okay, any questions for Brian? Okay, stick around, Brian. You got something else after this, as you know.
Nope, no problem.
Great. We're gonna bounce over to Lamont Daniels at Community Service. Lamont, are you with us? There he is.
Hi, good evening. I'm with you. I'm at a training, so bear with me. I'm trying to find a spot.
Brief is better.
Oh, I like that word. So very quickly, and Sherelle is here to quickly walk through. But as you can see, the health department, we're asking for the $45,000 for security upgrades. We've been working with Neil from Guardian. Quite frankly, the last time the system has been upgraded was over 20 years, and this also strengthens when things happen, or unfortunately when someone breaks in, we will have those direct connections with police and fire. So we've been working with the Guardian to put a quote together, and this is pretty what we would need to move forward on it, and we love your support to really execute this as soon as possible.
So, Ms. Harris, good evening. How are you, Sherelle?
Evening. Hold on. Can you hear me?
Sherelle, summarize for them, just kind of there's are 5 things that the mayor recommended for the library.
Oh,
Could you just
that was going to be my question. So just the 5 things?
No, if you could just briefly, just
go through all of them. Okay.
Items you requested, but yet wasn't recommended. If you will, please.
Sure. Okay. I'll just go through them quickly. So the first was the main library is not ADA compliant when it comes to the doorknobs. So the American Disabilities Act, so basically we're just not compliant. We have the traditional doorknobs that are found in homes, but the ADA requires the tighter grip. Those require the tighter grip twisting motions, on the wrist, and that's out of compliance with the ADA recommendations. So we're looking for the lever style that meets the ADA requirements. Neil from Guardian and William, I can never say his last name correctly. He's our new ADA coordinator. They were collaborating on this project. So they came up with the replacement for the 60 interior doors and the 3 exterior doors, in addition to sliding doors. And the cost breakdown for that was, it looked like 500 per lock set and 12,700 for the sliding doors. And moving on to, we requested a library van. Our current van is 16 years old. It's rear wheel drive, and it needs to be replaced. We have our driver doors won't open, without force. There's lots of wear and tear. And so we basically use the van, for runs between the libraries, runs to the city dump, restocking the library's off-site collections like the beach, the train station, the tax departments, etc. And so we gave options. We gave options for the electric, we gave options for gas, and we gave options for the high roof so that the guys don't have to bend over. Everyone's always complaining about bad backs, and this allows them to stand in the van as they're, taking things in and out. Our third request, and please feel free to stop me if you have any questions. Our third request was for our integrated library system. And so just in layman's terms, it's the computer that you go to when you're searching, for items when you come into the library. It's also the system that we use behind the scenes, for check-in and check-out. We have not upgraded ours in over 20 years, and our current vendor no longer supports our upgrades with any regularity. So they've had 2 major upgrades since, so it's just time because they're not supporting any upgrades. And let's see, I'm just scrolling through. So everyone's favorite probably is the Norwalk Hour digitization. Our request is to complete the final stage of the digital access to the hour. We partner with a company called Newsbank to digitize the missing years. And right now we have everything offered digitally except for the years 1971 through 2006. So these remaining, let's see, 35 non-digitized years are critical to Norwalk history. It will help our staff to field the many questions that come in through those years. In the past, we are so grateful that you funded, let's see, it was the hour, 1872 through 1970. We've also completed the Norwalk Gazette from 1818 through 1899, and the South Norwalk Sentinel from 1870 through 1945. So we just ask that, we get these last 35 years and, we'll have a complete run of Norwalk's history per their newspapers. We requested, actually this has gone over to Guardian's budget, the Sono library exterior lighting. It's not adequate with people. We're used to it here, but we had someone come over and say that the lighting just wasn't adequate. So Neil has done some upgrades, which are noticeable, but he's, working on other lighting that lights from our entrance to our parking lot. Oh my gosh, the main library first floor carpet, it's stained throughout, it's ripped in many areas. Not only is it not aesthetically attractive, but it's also a safety hazard. The rips are obvious. We have some tape in some areas. We've tried to take other rugs to put over some rips. So it's just not pretty, but it's also not safe. Let's see. And main library adult reading room furniture. So the main library right now, we were thinking we would have been renovated by now, so we were trying to hold off on asking for capital money, but you know, in the meantime, we have a lot of things that are just depreciating. So the main library right now, it lacks functional and visual appeal. And particularly for the older adults, many people are looking to read and study, you know, in quiet spaces. And there's no comfortable seating for the elderly, many of whom need, you know, armrests to lift themselves up. And, you know, we have the library has a high population that's aging. As a matter of fact, we just put together a series for the aging, and I will share that with the council tomorrow, well, actually Monday. So we're just looking to upgrade, to have a place where people want to sit, but they can also comfortably sit and, you know, read and you know, some people may want to congregate with others, maybe to study. And we just need furniture, right? I don't know if you all saw the pictures, but it's pretty dismal in there. And again, we were trying to hold off, thinking the library would be renovated, but we really need an upgrade, you know, for our citizens. The business center, most of the surrounding libraries have the business centers where people can go in, they can scan, they can shred, they can use the laminator, the industrial stapler, large format printers, and, you know, and obviously the tape dispenser, staples, paper clips, pens, highlighters, and things like that. And we do not. People are using the library very differently post-COVID. Many people are becoming entrepreneurs or they're working from home. And it would be nice to be able to offer, you know, these services as, you know, people are using libraries differently. And again, you know, our surrounding libraries do have them. And I don't want Norwalk to always follow. I would love for us to be in the forefront of these types of things. Outdoor furniture. So many, post-COVID, many people are using public spaces, using outdoor space more so than indoor. Well, I shouldn't say more so, but using outdoor spaces more with the open air and you know, just not being confined inside. So we were looking to have furniture that protects from the elements and just spaces where people can just sit and enjoy their library and in an outdoor space. We were able to secure an ARPA grant that we applied for through this Connecticut State Library in accordance with the City of Norwalk Solar Initiative. And so we did receive that, and people do use it. And it would be nice to just have some updated furniture that people can use to use the library outdoors. And so our last request is a carryover for our 3D printers. Our 3D printers are pretty old and outdated. And so we want to replace the 3D printers and accompanying laptops.
Okay. Any questions for Sherelle?
Yeah, Sherelle, I have a question about the ADA compliance. And what does that do if we're not able to do that this year for the long term? Do we run the risk of accruing any fines, or are there any issues, or are we grandfathered in at this point?
No, I'm not sure.
So
that
if I may, so you may or may not be aware that we hired an ADA coordinator, which has been a position, but it has been challenging, COVID and all the things we hear about recruitment. So we do have an ADA coordinator. What we decided to do was assess our priorities and prioritize, and most certainly, Councilman, the library is on there. To your question, no, we do not get fined. Our builders are grandfathered, but but we do take it seriously as we go through these processes to look at our buildings through a strategic process that we are embarking on as we speak, to then move forward to look at how do we ensure that our buildings are accessible to all Norwalkers who enter any city or public building.
Great. Thank you, Chief Daniels. I appreciate that answer. And thanks, Sherelle.
You're very welcome. Does that mean we get everything? I take that as a yes.
I was saying something witty, you missed it. That was on me. You did a great job, Sherelle, there. Great description explanation. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Lamont. Thank you, Sherelle. You guys have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
You all.
All right. As much as I would like to make Alan Lowe wait, Mr. Lowe, are you here with to go through building management with us?
This is Neil Rennie. I will be going through the all the topics tonight.
Nice to see you, Neil.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we're going to start with City Hall improvements, and we have two items on that for City Hall. We have the City Hall front terrace and associated steps off the concert hall. And we have EV sustainability project we're looking to do for this coming season. Just continue. You want me to just continue down my list? And
if you will, please.
Okay, very good. Next item is for Roosevelt Center. We have $10,000 in there for architectural services, as well as that's for roof replacements, some facade repairs. We also had in there for 2 entry/exit doors, which was not approved or recommended for the courtyard handicap ramp. Next line item is for Ben Franklin, design services for replacement of 2 boilers. Boiler 1 and 3 are failing. They're over 15 years old. Original condensate boilers in concept at that time, and that's for $180,000. Next line item is Nathaniel Ely improvements, and that's for HVAC upgrades. We received $275,000 in a prior year, and this is for the second half for the renovation. Next line item is boiler. Actually, it says boiler replacement. It's actually a burner replacement. So we're not replacing the whole boiler, just the burner section for $20,000. And that has some age on it. That's over 20 some odd years. The next line item is our capital replacement and various capital replacements and repairs, $50,000. That's for any unforeseen capital projects over the year. Next line item is police facilities for locker room upgrades, $200,000. And stop me if you need me to go into any further detail on any item. Next line item is energy conservation for our various city buildings. That's for $30,000. That pays for lighting upgrades, other energy projects. Next is the main library for $20,000 and new intrusion burglar system. The current system is obsolete. It's over 20 some odd years old. There's 2 systems in there. Both are failing, and we do not have the ability to add any. We wanted to do some panic devices over there, but we don't have the ability. We will not support any new technology. Next line item is environmental remediation for $20,000. We use that throughout the year for any remediation that we have to do, whether it's lead paint, asbestos, etc. And I think that's it. Any questions?
All right. Thank you very much, Neil.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
See you as well.
Bye now.
Okay, next up, we have Recreation and Parks. Robert, are you with us? Mr.
Hey.
Hughes, good
Hey, good
evening.
evening, Chairman. How you doing? I'm not sure if Robert was able to jump on yet, but I can jump in to not keep you guys waiting. Thank you for having me. Okay, so our first item, 250,000. This is for work that's needed at the Parks Garage. This is the new building that we acquired at 10 Tito Court. We have needed improvements for plumbing, electrical, carpentry, and landscaping. The second item is our vehicle capital request. In this, we have a leaf truck. It's to replace a 2006 leaf truck. We also have a beach tractor, which is going to be used for multiple reasons down at the beach. And then we also have a request for a vehicle for our new staff electrician. Our next request is down at Calf Pasture Beach. We plan on doing the center bathroom renovations, both the men's and women's room or the bathroom. We have a $150,000 request for the bathrooms. This will be done by our staff plumber and carpenter in-house. Next request after that, we have some athletic court renovations. We're planning to mill, repave, and resurface the basketball court at Fitch Park. We also have a request for a new install of a tennis and pickleball court at Roten School. We have a request for lights at the pickleball courts at Woodward Avenue Park, and also some additional court work at Nathaniel Ely. Following that are our playground renovations. We follow a rotating list for replacement based on the age and condition of the structure. Next in line would be Fox Run School, the kindergarten playground on the side of the school, and then also Woodward Avenue Park. The next item is the renovation of athletic fields. Once a year, we do 2 or 3 fields. This $50,000 covers the renovations of 2 of the athletic fields. Next request is the Vets Marina. We have $1.8 million in for the construction of the new Vets Marina. We're currently in design, and we hope to go out to bid for construction later on this calendar year. Next item is the Broad River Baseball Complex, which is still under design. We have a $1 million request for the Broad River Baseball Complex. Following that, we have our $50,000 for our tree replacement. This replaces trees and plants new trees throughout our school and park properties citywide. We also have a $50,000 request for various paving and concrete repairs throughout the parks and the schools. We then have a $50,000 repair request for our backstops and fencing. This is also citywide parks and schools. Following that, we have a $250,000 request for playground reconstruction. This is up at Cranberry Park. This is to replace the existing playground, which is now going on 16 years old, which is located right next to the pavilion up at Cranberry Park. Our next is the continuation of the master plan for Oyster Shell Park. We have a $350,000 request for the shade structure on top of the park, additional benches, tables, some signage, wooden guardrails, some more paving, and additional fencing. So we have this is a new capital account this year, falls under park sustainability. We have a $160,000 request. That includes a $110,000 request for a electric Ford F-150, and also a $50,000 request for miscellaneous electrical infrastructure upgrades throughout our park buildings in order to accommodate, electric vehicles. Next item is the $50,000. This is for the open space fund. This is our yearly request. And then our final item is the replacement of the Casa Grande field and scoreboard for $100,000. And that wraps up my capital. Mr. Livingston.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, Ken, on the Roten project, you have a pickleball there. Where are you going to put that?
On the side of the school. Do you know where they just put the outdoor classroom in?
No.
So if you're staying at the baseball field looking at Roten School, on the right side, down by the basketball courts.
Oh, got it. Okay. And that's a all new construction, right?
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks. And the other thing I just wanted to ask, on the Broad River, I know it was in your request, but it's not on the mayor's list, right?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. All right, thank you.
Hey,
So, yeah, if it's not on the mayor's list, just a follow-up question, does that mean that you're still asking that it get put in at a later time, or?
No, I think the chairman just wanted us to present all of our items, whether they requested or not. So I was just presenting the entire list of our requests.
Okay, and Broad River's the only one right now that's on the list that has a turf field imagined on it, right, for design?
Yes.
We are also considering, Mr. Chairman, maybe using grass there, so we haven't defined. It may be a combination of both because of some of the drainage that we need to do in that area. So we are still on design for that.
So you're not asking for money this year for Broad River?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Thank you, Kim.
No, thank you. Have a good night.
You as well. Now we're gonna move on to Vanessa. Sorry to make you wait, but you're up for Public Works.
Sure. I also want to introduce you. I have the new principal engineer here. I don't think if most of you already met him. Is Jim Meehan. He started with us a little over a month ago. So this year I'm going to go through the list, but probably next year he'll be the one that will go through the list with you. So I'm going to start with operations. The first request is for the electrical upgrades on charging station. For us, in order to be able to start changing the fleet for some electrical and also to feed our hybrid cars, we want to add a couple of electric chargers at operations center. So that's why it is the $50,000 there. The other thing under operations, but more under the solid waste, is that we need to change the scale for the trucks. This is related to all the yard waste that is coming to the operations. That scale has settled a little bit and it's not as long. So we need to improve that one so we can have a very accurate reading on the scale. Those are all related to operations. Do you guys have any questions related to it? And then I can move to engineering.
Vanessa, just on the, you're spending $100,000 on a truck scale replacement. I mean, I assume you've done the analysis that it makes sense to spend that much money for the accuracy.
Yes, it does. It is also, it's very old. It was put up when they built the operations, and then the site itself settled a little bit. So the scale is even settled with it. So we definitely need a scale there.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions, or can I move to engineering?
You're good to go.
Okay, thank you. So engineering, our first item is the structural inspection repairs. You guys may remember that Connecticut DOT stopped really inspecting all the bridges that are below a 20-foot span. So what we do is we have to have inspection, we hire a designer, and then we have a list of which ones are priorities, and we use that money to also do the small repairs or replacements that needs to happen. So that's why that's the number. And 1 year is a little bit higher than the other because one we go with just a little design and the other we have to address some of the construction. So that is why on my bridge repair shows that. The structural inspection is just more for a structural engineer and some specific, and then the second one for bridge repairs is where we repair those based on that study. West Cedar Street Bridge, this is part of the bridge program with the DOT. We actually just pay for a portion of it. We are still pending permit for that one. We have money already in the account. We are just adding another 100,000 this year because there will be some changes in the design to accommodate the permit requirements, and that's why we need a little bit of extra money. Perry Avenue Bridge rails, the rails at the Perry Avenue, not the newest one that we did, more up over on Perry. It is really not looking good, and we need some money to be able to abate the paint that is there and put a new one. Paving management program. This is our paving program. It has been extremely successful with this new approach that we do. Now, what we do first, and I'm gonna even go through B1, B2, and B3 because pretty much
it is one program. It's just that we break down in different items so you guys can understand better how we're spending that money. But what we do first is just we make a list of based on our analysis on what are the streets that needs to be paved. Then we coordinate with the utility companies to see if they have any capital improvements that needs to happen on that street, and ask them to go there first. Then we also CCTV all the drainage on those roads, and any changes that we need to do that, we ended up now being there first. So we take care of everything underground. Then on that area, if there are sidewalks, we're going to go back and repair or replace or sometimes add sidewalks just to the streets that we're paving. TMP take care of new sidewalks. So I just want to make that clear because we're going to see that item again at TMP. So that money goes to the sidewalks on the roads that we are planning to pave. And finally, we are paving the streets. The good thing is that we started implementing this approach a few years ago, and now we are ahead of the game finally. So, for instance, this year we're already doing the drainage for some of the roads that will be paved a year and a half from today. And the sidewalks are already doing the sidewalks that will getting paved either later this year or even next year. And that's why it opened more roads for us to pave. We had the metrics from last year show how much more we have been doing with this. So if you guys keep giving us the fund, we're going to make sure that will be very well spent. Footpath replacement also is tied up with the paving program. If there is a footpath on the roads that we are doing, we ended up replacing them. Now moving to Heather Lane, Lockwood Storm Drain. We request $4 million. It hasn't been funded, but to be honest, we also applied for a grant last minute about a week and a half ago through Heim's office, and we have hope that maybe we'll be able to get some funding for this project. So that's why, in case we do not, you guys going to see this item back in the agenda for next year. Dredging marinas and easements, we haven't had any requests recently, so that's why we haven't asked anything for this year. Water course maintenance is where we take the money to do a lot of a little bigger drainage projects that we identify that needs to be replaced. So it's not a standalone project, but sometimes we need to upgrade an outfall in a specific street. Maybe we need to add a couple of more pipes when we do all this investigation for paving. And also we buy all the catch basins and material from that account. We drain all this money. New Canaan Avenue, Ponus, we are still under the study. We finished the study, and unfortunately, this is a very expensive project. Now we're going to be able, we're going to try to fund at least the part A, that will be the outfall and the beginning under the baseball field. We are still on design on that because we need to see what will be the best approach, and that's why it's not funded for this year. Glendening and Cannon Street, we had just a study, and now we need to move for design. There is a solution, but just to design the solution will be $385,000. Stormwater management plan, this is refers to our MS4. We are engaging our consultant to develop the plan for us, and then we already have some money on the ARPA to fund for that. But now this year we see that we're going to need probably $100,000 extra to be able to investigate everything that we need as part of our MS4 plan. Lawrence Street storm drainage. There is also a study that was done a few years ago. This $100,000 will be to engage another consultant, or the same one, of course, to look at it and see if what was studied before was feasible and start moving to design. Glenwood Avenue storm drainage, we didn't get funded. This is still also for design that we need to do that. North River flood control, we have money in the account. We don't need anything for this year. Coastal resilience, we had money from ARPA funds, so we don't need it to use on capital. Tree planting, same thing. We receive funding from last us over until the end of this year. That's why we're not requesting any money. East Avenue roadway and bridge reconstruction. Again, this is part of the advanced utility that we are doing, and we pay for the portion between Fort Point and Olmsted. And this is, we need $1 million as July 1st to finish our, I will not say finish, but to fulfill our obligations for this year. Elizabeth Street, we want to also underground Elizabeth Street. There were some projects in the area at Day Street that we did before. We have already engaged in our, last week, we ended up already open an RFP. We have going to Common Council the approval of that contract. And these $100,000 will be if we need to fulfill more that contract or maybe start a little bit of construction. Grant local matching funds. This money works when we have state projects and we have no participating items. That's why we need to use this money for. So for instance, if we want like some type of a granite curb, the state is doing a project, they were not going to fund the granite curb. We ask them to do it and we pay the difference. Green infrastructure also we use as ARPA money, so that's why it's not showing here. We're about to finish this green infrastructure money with the Calf Pasture Beach. We use some of that to fund that project, and we were not overseeing anything happening by the end of this year, but definitely for the next fiscal year, we're going to ask for money on that. State no participant in city standard amenities is quite of similar with our grant local matching funds. It's just that it depends on the type of project we'll take from one or the other. This year, we are not asking for any. We still have a little bit of leftover. The other two, we never got it funded since last year, is the right-of-way use policy study and the area to underground utilities. And then, and infrastructure investment cap reserve was always an account that we haven't got any money. We don't need it now, to be honest, for this year. And my last item is the fleet replacement. Originally, we asked for $955,000. There is a list of what the cars and trucks that we changed. We have a 5-year forecast. We have been funded with $600,000. I know it is a big cut, but we do understand that we had to find some money to be up to a certain level. So we're going to change a little bit things in our fleet replacement for next year. We're going to delay the purchase of a truck. To be honest, we're not going to be too bad because, as Chief Walsh stated before, it has been a nightmare to try to buy any type of vehicles. So we can definitely wait and put this truck that we're taking out from this year to next year. And I think that with that, I finish all my engineering and operations capital request.
Great job, Vanessa. Any questions? All right.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you as well. Okay, now we're going to move on to the Board of Education. I believe we have a couple members. Good evening, Linda. How are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
So I have members of the Board of Ed Cabinet that are responsible for each of these projects. In total, we had submitted 13 requests for projects. 11 were recommended by the mayor for funding. And so we'll go through and explain each one of these projects. We did also have a request. We have one project, Brookside Montessori program, that we will speak to. We had requested $300,000, but it was not recommended for funding. We would like to see if the committee would allow us to transfer $50,000 from the technology project and $25,000 from the schools project, so that we would have $75,000 for the Montessori project, staying within our overall recommendation by the mayor.
Do you have any more detail to back up that request?
Yes, each of these projects we're going to speak to.
Okay.
So we'll start with band instruments and we'll go down the list.
So, good evening, everyone. Rob Pennington. Many of the instruments in our current inventory are over 30 years old, and We've noticed a decline in family-owned and rented instruments. The financial burden of renting or purchasing these equipments is beyond the means of many of our families. The music programs are a highlight of Norwalk Public Schools and Norwalk in general. And to provide an exceptional music education program, we have to provide quality instruments. And so we are looking to replace band and strings instruments.
Thank you, Rob. The next one is security that Ryan Harold is going to speak to.
Good evening. Thank you, council members. Ryan Harold is actually on the phone with NPD, so I'm going to speak on behalf of that request. So the request that we had put forth to the council is part of a 3-year plan to increase our school security infrastructure. We broke down the phases. We actually had come to you last year with a bigger request, and luckily we were funded at the last minute for a portion of it. And I think Ryan is off the phone, so I'm going to turn it over to him. But we're looking for the second phase of the request, and I'm going to turn it over to Ryan so that you understand the scope of the project that's been broken down over 3 years.
Great, thank you, Sandra. So as Sandra mentioned, $300,000 is part of a continuation of last year's request to increase our camera infrastructure within the district. The reality is many of our cameras are still in the analog system. They're blurry, they're outdated, and they need repair. Along with cameras, there's the hardware, obviously, but we'll also be increasing our infrastructure through increasing our servers. Right now, the amount of servers that we have, we do not have any more licenses or servers to add more cameras. As many of you guys know, our buildings are old and built very strong, but this is a nightmare when it comes to installing cameras through steel and navigating through concrete and different materials that were used in the past to build schools. So this project will, again, a continuation, but will give us full coverage. And really, to be honest with you, it's just catching us up to industry standards and giving us full coverage throughout all of our schools. A portion of that money is for Norwalk High School. Understanding that the school will be built down, will be broken down and rebuilt in several years. The cameras that will be installed there will then give us a back order or a stockpile of cameras that we'll be able to use in the future. Typically, cameras last anywhere between 6 to 8 years, but with the stockpile off of the existing Norwalk High, we'll really be able to cover all of our camera needs for the next 10, 11, 12 years. The next $300,000, again, is a continuation of last year's ask, and this is to install Wi-Fi door alarms throughout all of our buildings. So all of our new buildings right now, again, industry standard for 2023 is to have alarms in all doors. Controlling your exits in terms of security is really a basic foundational measure that we need to have. So installing Wi-Fi door alarms will give us the ability to monitor who's coming in, who's coming out of those entrances. That might not be the main entrance where we have human bodies there monitoring. So again, this is really industry standard. It's very basic. It's really just catching us up to where we should be already. And then the final $4,000 is for a communications program, an emergency communications program called Mutual Link. Along with building our infrastructure of Wi-Fi, door alarms, cameras, our radio systems, Mutual Link is the system that brings it all together. So what happens is when an emergency happens, first responders locally as well as the state level will be able to tap into our systems in their command posts and see live feeds, be able to map out, we'll be able to grid out all of our properties for, really live coordinates about where an emergency is happening. And this will be interfaced with not just NPS, NPD, but also state responders as well. So we're all seeing the same things in real time, communicating in real time, all on one platform. NPD received Mutual Link through a state grant, as many other municipalities have, including colleges. So really, in terms of the state of Connecticut emergency management, this is becoming the standard. And I think it's important in safety and security that we're part of leading that charge rather than being behind the curve on that. So I'll be open to any questions you might have about the requests.
Yeah, Ryan, I have a question. Are these security improvements going to be done district-wide? I know you mentioned Norwalk High School.
Correct. So these acts will complete, we're almost complete about 80% of our properties.
And you mentioned stockpiling cameras in anticipation of a new Norwalk High School. So you plan to purchase the cameras?
Yeah, let me clarify. So part of this ask is to retrofit the current building of Norwalk High. Being that's only 3 or 4 years, when the building comes down, we'll be able to remove these cameras and put them into stock. And then when other needs come up, we'll be able to use these as opposed to purchasing. So we'll be able to repurchase these in the future, repurpose these in the future rather than purchasing new ones.
I'm always a little skeptical about things like that. I feel like they never come to fruition. I mean, either technology changes, difficulties, software, whatever the case may be. I mean, how confident do you feel like that we could repurpose these cameras and down the road in a new?
Yeah, great question. So in terms of software, right now we use Smart Client, which is our monitoring system, and that is nationally, federally top of the line equipment, which is compatible obviously with the infrastructure that we're going to be increasing. Now I understand the skepticism, but right now we're doing this already with some of the cameras that were at the old Jefferson. We'll be using some of the cameras that are currently in Cranberry. So we're currently already doing this, but it's still not enough.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
Ralph, can you speak on instructional technology?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. So our numbers fall into 4 different buckets, if you want to think of it from a line item standpoint for the amount that we asked for. Our first bucket, as you guys are all aware, we as a district are a 1-to-1 school district now with computers. We have with teachers and other devices, we have 16,000 computers that we have to manage, which usually means on a 4-year recycle, there's about 3,500 machines that have to be replaced per year in order to kind of keep ourselves in a regular refresh. So the initial request was for 705,000 for student laptops. We're looking at trying to do 1 less grade level, and we've reduced that to 425,000. We've reduced our teacher devices to about a $60,000 ask for replacements. We do have a $290,000 request that is for our virtual servers and our security. So we do need to make sure that that actually is in place for us. Our virtual servers, our virtual server environment is getting to the age where it does need to be replaced and upgraded. And then finally, we have about $25,000 put aside right now for replacement of ViewSonic boards, interactive whiteboards, and any repairs. Well, not repairs meaning an extra computer that's needed in one of our music or art labs.
Ms. Fayos will speak to the Montessori program. That's the program you're referring to, John.
Okay, I hope to be clear and concise. 6 years ago, the school district actually started a Montessori program in response to some community needs. We actually had a lot of our residents going over to the Wilton program and going to other Montessori programs. So we started one here, and we actually placed it at Brookside Elementary School because that was the facility that actually had the best access for the Montessori type classrooms. So 6 years ago, 2 preschool or early grade Montessori classrooms were funded and started at Brookside to a huge waiting list. Those students now, 2 years ago, ended up graduating out of that early grades. And this, again, the approval for the funding for the added classroom was given. We added another classroom now for those kids that are graduating out of those pre-K, grade K and grade 1 classrooms into a 2nd grade classroom. That 2nd grade classroom now has enough students for a second grade classroom, and then they'll remain there until they are 3 years from now. So the request was to actually add and expand the program that you have invested in and invested in the district from the very start. We always have a waiting list for our Montessori programs, and it actually services the students of Norwalk and has done really exceptional in keeping our students here and our families here. So the request was for us to just have the continuation of that program. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Can you refresh my memory on what funding you like to be moved from what item to what item?
So
Sure.
Go ahead, Lunda, please.
We were requesting to move 50,000 from the instructional technology.
What number?
50,000.
No, excuse me. What number are?
On my list, it's project number 3. I don't have the.
Structural technology, okay. The 850.
Yes.
You wanted to minus 50 from that.
Minus 50 from that. And then if you scroll down, there's a school project, which is at 275. And we were asking to minus 25 from that so that the Montessori would have 75.
And which one is the number 4?
Number 4.
Which didn't get recommended by the mayor.
Correct.
I mean, I know you can't speak for him, but is there any specific reason why, any feedback that you got on the reason why it wasn't funded or recommended?
There just wasn't enough money to go around, and we were tasked to figuring out how we could make. So you'll see that even at that 75,000 level, it's less than what we had requested. We're looking at other funds, possibly either grant funds to make up the difference. What these funds do, if you're aware, and maybe Sandra, you could speak more on the Montessori program. This buys the equipments that go into the classroom. That's what makes the Montessori program unique from other classes, but that's what we'll be using.
Okay, I guess we'll go back to that at the end. If you will, can you please proceed with
I think there were a couple of hands, but if you'd like us to move forward, it's fine.
Yeah,
sure.
I'd like to ask a question if I could. Actually, but before I do, Sandra, I'd just like to thank you for really explaining the reasons initially for the implementation of the Montessori program.
I was the principal at the time.
That was under Dr. Adamowski. And I always
Yes.
wondered, it just seemed a little strange to me because that's a private school model and why are we doing it in a public school? But, now I really understand it, that it's really to keep those families here who we may have lost. So I appreciate that explanation.
Thank you, Barbara.
Yeah. So my question though was for Ralph. Ralph, you're losing 50,000 out of your instructional technology. What are you losing out on and how does that work for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think really, just in conversations in general, we're looking to see how we can actually repair machines for this year. In the large scope of things, I mean, 50,000 is a lot, but I think it's something that the Montessori program as a whole is really, really important that we continue with. And I also know that as we've been trying to just look at how long we can actually hold on to our technology. So the 50,000, it basically means that instead of replacing 3 grade levels this coming year, it looks like I'm going to be replacing 2. Okay. So we're going to have to kind of recalibrate a little bit as we move forward.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Livingston?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm just curious. So you requested 360,000 and you'll get 75, assuming we approve.
Yes.
Is that really worthwhile? I mean, how does that?
Well, what we could do with the 75, and I could actually talk to Bill Hodel about it, is we could actually build out the classroom space that we need for it. And then we have to write grants for the other pieces that are actually the instructional materials and the other items that we would actually, that has been funded in the past through these projects, but those are the other things that we would have to either split or secure grants.
Well, I guess that begs the question of whether you'd be applying for those grants anyway.
Right.
We would be applying for those grants for curriculum materials, but the need for curriculum materials is great. And we would just be able to make sure that we're carving out pieces for the Montessori program.
Right, okay, thank you.
But it would allow us to build out the infrastructure for it. The actual pieces of the hardware for it.
Construction costs.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's a great program. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else?
Sorry, John.
No, anyone else, any questions before we move on? Okay.
Thank you.
Next is the curriculum materials and textbooks, and Mr. Pennington.
Sure. So there are two items in this bucket for curriculum materials and textbooks. One of them is dual language materials. And we have 4 schools that are implementing the dual language methodology of instruction, supporting our students. We have Silvermine and West Rocks, and we have open classrooms at Jefferson and Brookside as well. And as those grades roll into the next grade level, we will need to purchase materials for that next grade because we start with 1 grade and we're supporting students and then we roll to the next grade. So that is one component, is to purchase the materials for the next grade level in those classrooms. And then the second item is around social studies. And the state of Connecticut is currently updating their framework. And in talking with them, they will have some very specific content standards and some changes to their program. We'll be writing and updating our curricula around that. And then we will need to purchase materials that will support that curriculum update. And those are the 2 bucket items under curriculum.
The next series of projects, Bill Hodel, I will speak to, beginning with the air conditioning program.
So yes, thank you. We started the air conditioning upgrade program or installation program a number of years ago. And we are happy to receive another funding of $650,000. We have almost 6 schools left. Now, those schools include Rowayton, Wolf Pit, Narragansett, Tracy, Nathan Hale, and West Rocks. This coming summer, we are doing Nathan Hale. West Rocks, we're probably going to hold off on that since that is considered to be renovated as new. So we typically would have the remaining 4 schools after we do Nathan Hale this year. These programs are typically not funded by the state. However, they're changing their dynamics with HVAC grants. So we hope to take advantage of that as time moves on. The next one up here is the capital repairs and replacements. This is valued at $50,000. While we appreciate that, there is a lot of aging infrastructure that we will certainly use this money up probably sooner than what we actually think. The next item is the school paving for $100,000. We had hoped to do Brian McMahon this summer, but what we're going to do is take the $100,000 and perhaps use that at a different school, maybe Kendall. But our hopes that Brian McMahon will come up perhaps in the next year.
Hey, Bill, I got a quick question. I got to ask you every year, are we piggybacking on the city's paving contract to get the discount?
That is our goal each year. I haven't approached them yet because we're just looking at this funding now.
How has it been the last couple of years? Have we been able to take advantage of that discount?
Yes, the last school we did was Nathan Hale, and it was with the discount through that group as well.
Great. I mean, as we know, it could be up to 25 to, 40% cheaper to do it on top of the city's discount. So it'd be great to.
That is correct.
Make sure we take care of that. Thank you, Bill. Please proceed.
I think there's a question.
Yeah, Bill, so so if you don't do McMahon, does that mean you're not going to restripe it at least? Because I understand it's a real problem there.
That was already completed.
Okay, it was. Okay.
It's been restriped.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Okay. The next one up is the fuel tank replacement. We have done 8 of these. We still need more to go. Brian McMahon, West Rocks, Brookside, and Tracy. So this $500,000 will certainly
come in handy. The next one up was not a recommendation by the mayor, yet that is also tied to heating replacements. We're not asking for more money on this. However, we might come back to you next year and ask for that. School projects, item number 11, as we mentioned earlier, these are various projects that some of the principals have placed for repair and replacement. And as we mentioned earlier, some of this money would be recaptured to for the Brookside Montessori program. The next item up is the asbestos abatement program. Here again, we are doing that every summer. This year, we're doing phase 2 at Rowton. These projects are state reimbursable, and the ongoing program will include the Narragansett, Wolf Pit, and Fox Run. The last item here is Brian McMahon, the cooling plant upgrade. For those of you who don't know, both Norwalk High and Brian McMahon are central air. The entire school is central air minus the gymnasiums. So at Brian McMahon in particular, the cooling plant is at its end of life, I should say. And it has some major components that have broken down over the past couple of years to the point it needs to be replaced. So while we're getting by with bubble gum and Band-Aids, the machine needs to be totally replaced. Unfortunately, Brian McMahon does not have redundancy like Norwalk High has. That is a backup, a second chiller. So our goal is to bring in a design team, spend the next year to design the systems over at Brian McMahon and include air conditioning to the gymnasium as well. As we all know, we're all getting a new Norwalk High School. That gymnasium will be air conditioned, and we have to step it up with Brian McMahon as well, air condition that gymnasium, those locker rooms as well. So we're looking for $100,000 for soft costs. That is to design a new system with redundancy. We don't look at any major upgrades happening at Brian McMahon for quite a number of years. And if we do not do anything to this air conditioning system ahead of time, we will continue to have major breakdowns, and that will affect the learning environment there. I think that's the last item on our list.
Any questions? Okay, I'm inclined to make an amendment to move this money around. I mean, I guess we'll do our, if anything pops off between now and the council, I guess, it could always be, anything can be changed on the council floor. But that being said, I will now make an amendment to deduct $50,000 from item 3, instructional technology, and $25,000 from item 11, school projects, and add $75,000 to item number 4, Brookside Montessori program expand. Lunda, can I ask of you that if this item passes, that you send Jessica an email with the specifics, and so she can pass that on to Irene for Tuesday's council meeting?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor of the amendment as proposed, please raise your hand and signify yes.
Yes.
Darlene, are you with
Yes.
us? Yes. Okay. That's unanimous, I believe, correct? Okay. All right. And at the end, we'll vote for the item as amended. All right. Great. Thank you, everyone. Very detailed. Barbara, do you have your hand up? Oh, okay. Thank you, everyone. Now, moving on, I will, wow, we still got a lot left, guys, so hang in there. Now we're going to move on to economic and community development. And first up will be Sabrina with the Arts Commission.
Hi, everybody. I have 3 projects for the Arts Commission, and I'll try to be quick and respectful of your guys' time. So we have The first request is $200,000 for the Art in Public Places program. In previous years, this was a $50,000 request. We did some murals in the MLK corridor. As I'm sure most of you have seen at this point, we've also done additional traffic graphic boxes and have a plan for a Monroe Street mural for last year's money as well, that we're waiting for state approval to be able to start the install on that, hopefully this spring. And then this larger request is actually for the West Avenue Gateway mural that's between, on West Avenue, that's between the mall property and Matthews Mansion. So that would include both sides of that wall and would be kind of a very large mural. We're looking at over 20,000 square feet over there to be able to do that. We do have a grant ask out right now that we submitted a couple months ago. We'll hear if we have received that grant or not in late spring. We're hoping that we'll be able to cover half of the cost of the mural, but we are hopeful that even if we do not receive that grant, we'll still be able to do the project. So that is the first request. We also actually did engage with an artist already. So the cost that is outlined for you is actually the exact cost of the mural. So I just wanted to be clear on that specific ask. The second ask is $181,000 for the public art inventory. This request was on the package agenda for last year, but it was only $100,000. We had actually contacted the National Archivists that do all of kind of the museums in the US and a lot of different municipalities, public art collections. They came back with a quoted proposal for us that included $181,000. The reason for the increase is that there needs to be a specialty appraiser for the WPA murals that we have in Norwalk. We have the largest collection in the country, and there's only a few specific people who deal with those murals and actually know how much they're worth and how to improve them and how to categorize them. So that was the increase in cost from this time to now. That inventory would not only value all the pieces, it'll help for us with insurance purposes. If any of the pieces need to be improved or need to be maintained, it would identify those for us. And then additionally, it would digitize our entire public art inventory, our public art collection, and digitize that and make it readily available for the public. And last but not least is $10,000 for a public art maintenance program. We currently do not have any funding in place for any of the new installations of art that we have, but also our art that we have that's existed in the city forever to actually maintain those pieces. How we've been functioning at this point is that they only really get maintained if there is some larger event that happens to them and we're able to use insurance funding to cover that cost. So we're proposing having a $10,000 fund that will slowly maintain our pieces as they become due, and that we can keep, have a recurring request so that we'll be able to maintain all the art that we currently have, but also all the new art that we're adding to the city. So that's those three items, and I'm happy to entertain any questions you guys may have.
Okay, thanks, Sabrina.
Actually, I have a question, if you don't mind. So, Sabrina, the public art inventory, though, that has not been recommended. Is this something that you will, I'm assuming you're going to ask again next year for this?
I will. There's no direct immediate need for it besides the fact that we don't know the value of all of our assets that we own in the city, which becomes an issue for insurance purposes. But it was halfway going through the budget process last year, but then it was recommended to switch the funding that was for the inventory for another item under TMP's request. So this year, if we are not going to get it recommended, we would have then ask again next year for sure.
Yeah, because I think it's really important, and so I'll be watching for that next year.
Thank you so much.
Sabrina, I see you only have a couple more things to speak on business development tourism. You want to just take care of that so you can enjoy the rest of your evening? Sure.
Not that it's much joy. I'm driving home from Florida, so I'm here for entertainment tonight too. So the first request under business development and tourism is $150,000 for special events for the city. So as I hope all of you attended and remembered from this past holiday season, we had two great holiday events. one in South Morocco and one in Wall Street. This funding will cover that, but plus some extras. We're hoping to do a Halloween type of event. We're hoping to kind of fund some farmers markets and a lot of other really awesome things. We are supplementing this $150,000 with $70,000 of ARPA funding to support events. And then we also have an ARPA supported position that's coming on board to actually be the special events coordinator that will not only kind of wake up at 8 a.m. on a Saturday and make sure everything's running great, but they'll also have kind of a planned schedule of actually city funded events that are separate from kind of what we've been doing at Parks and Rec and at the beach, but more citywide events focused mainly on kind of our downtown urban core areas. The second one is a $30,000 ask. We were funding it in the past for $50,000 for an arts and culture plan in the city. We actually asked around to a bunch of other municipalities and to some firms. They came back with a price that was pretty solidly around $80,000, $70,000 to $80,000 in most cases for municipalities that were our size. The arts and culture plan, if it was in place, would dictate where our funding should be spent to support arts and culture. One of the initiatives that's actually going through ordinance right now is the establishment of an arts and cultural commission. And that commission would actually be in charge of allocating funding based on an arts and culture plan. We currently don't have one in place. So that $30,000 would create, would add to the $50,000 that was already approved to then be able to complete the project. And then last but not least, there is no funding request this year for the microgrants program. This will be the Norwalk Innovations Program, and we're actually funding that through with ARPA dollars this year. We did a pilot program last year with the Chamber of Commerce, which is essentially just a program that supports entrepreneurs in Norwalk, and in hopes that we can, kick some money into our startups to be able to decrease vacancy as our storefronts and also support, homegrown businesses in Norwalk. So we're using ARPA dollars to do that right now and for this coming year and the next. But once that funding runs out, this capital request will be back in the budget.
I hope you're not driving and reading at the same time.
I am not. I'm with my mom. She's driving. So we're being really responsible.
Great. Any questions for Sabrina? No? Okay. All right. Well, safe trip back or there, or whichever direction you're going.
Thank you. I'm coming back home. So I'll be in Norwalk in 13 hours.
Great. Bring that warm weather with you.
I will try. Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
Thanks, Sabrina. Okay. So now we're going to go back up and Jess, Chief of ECD, that's you. You're up.
It is. Thank you so much. So we have one item that we're asking for funding for in this fiscal year, which is the Small Business Main Street Program. And this is the program that we have funded previously the COVID business assistance grants out of. We purchased the new garbage cans and recycling cans for Wall Street. We've purchased the banners for the neighborhoods, and we've also done some of the streetscape improvements and the placemaking improvements with this fund as well. In addition, this account also allows us to put in $50,000 for storefront improvement program. We've partnered with 15 different businesses in and around our urban core to be able to make improvements to their storefronts, where we've been doing a matching grant with them to be able to support those improvements along the main corridors. So we're asking for $150,000 again this year to be able to continue that programming moving forward. And we anticipate using it for, again, placemaking, also streetscape improvements, additional replacement banners, but we're also looking at programming in and around the South Norwalk neighborhood related to the Walk Bridge program as well. And so we think that this program is extremely important this year and the years moving forward, given the work that will be going on with that particular project in South Norwalk. And there is also the main library expansion project, which is not in FY24, but it is in FY26. And it is that $25 million that has been floating in the capital budget for the last number of years, which the city and the mayor are still dedicated and committed to that library expansion. However, we have been delaying the project until we are able to put together some architectural services and be able to work with the library on what exactly that expansion will look like.
Hey, Darlene, you're unmuted.
Economic and community development.
There you go. Jess, you want to finish up with Historical Commission? I believe you were going to speak to that as well.
Yeah, I'm also going to speak to the building and code enforcement item
that's
as
right.
well. So building and code enforcement is next. It's streetscape improvements, $150,000. This is actually the contract that you had approved last year for 2022, 2023, and 2024 with 2 one-year extensions. For meticulous landscaping. They're the group that we work with to maintain all of the parklands and urban parks in the urban core, in addition to the medians. When we renegotiated the contract, we picked up Klondike Park. We also picked up all of the medians along the MLK core, the MLK Drive, and a few other areas as well. So they've been really great to work with. We've been working with them on the holiday decorations for Wall Street and also North and South Main Street in Washington. So this is a contractual obligation where we're asking for the 150 to be able to continue that contract. And for historical, Patsy, would you like to talk to and speak to the Lockwood Matthews Mansion request first, and then I can pick up the other items after that? Oh, you're on mute, Patsy.
Are we okay now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, sorry, thank you. Obviously, this is an unusual project because it is a city property managed by the museum, and it is funded with state and city funds, $8 million from the state and $5.5 million currently from the city, with a ask in this budget of $1,250,000. This is strictly a mechanical upgrade project, which was started in 2008, and pieces have been pulled out through the years and accomplished. And this is the last piece for the mechanical piece. And I repeat that again because many people think we're dealing with restoration, decorative restoration, and it's not. It's to provide heating and lights on all the floors in the building and to allow the building to be open to the public all year round rather than just seasonal, with when weather would permit, not just in the winter months when the heat is not sufficient, but when the summer, when it's so hot in there, we can't have any visitors in the building. As I said, this is a joint project, not only with money, but with effort and intellect and love for the structure. We have been working on this phase for the last 3 years. We have gone out to bid since the fall. We were forced to go out twice. The first round, and we're using the city's purchasing department to do all of this work. The bids came in very high, and we didn't get several trades to even bid at all because it's such a complicated project. We went out again, and we now have been able to piece the basic project together and to hopefully start our construction May 1st. But we need this additional $1,250,000 to make that all happen. We actually are currently moving out of the building with all of our fine arts are going to fine art storage in Long Island City. The project just to move out of the building is over $500,000 to take our collections and to pack them professionally and safely and transport them and insure them and protect them for the life of this project, which is estimated to be 18 months. It will probably be longer than that, but in the meantime, we have to move the staffing. out of the building and turn the building over to the contractors without our being in the building at all. And just this afternoon, I have verbally finally found a location for us to move within the city. So we're very excited. It's been a long haul, but we hope that along with the mayor's support, that you people will also support that needed additional $1,250,000. We have been doing this in conjunction, as I said, with the state. So on a weekly basis, we meet with representatives from the state, from the Department of Economic Development and Community Development, and from Preservation Trust, SHPO. In addition to this project, we are also vigorously looking for additional fundings for side projects, physical side projects for the building. And we have garnered $150,000 grant from a matching grant between one of our trustees and the state for restoration of the front doors of the building. And we have applied for a good to great grant for lighting fixtures for $49,000. We haven't heard back on that one yet, but I share that with you just to show how committed the trustees of the mansion are to get this facility up to where we can really enjoy the splendor of it. Are there any questions or comments? I'm happy to answer them for you. Great. So thank you very much. And I'll be packing more tomorrow.
Thank you, Patsy.
Great. So Chairman Kaides, I'll just cover the other historical items if that's okay.
Yes, please.
So for the Smith Street request, historical is looking for 160,000. As you know, there's two buildings. There's a jail and a barn. In 2010, the jail had a fire, and $250,000 was spent of insurance money to make exterior improvements and to seal the building, including windows. Another $650,000 was given in a state grant through OPM to be able to make ADA accommodations for both the buildings, both the jail and the barn. There is a second phase of work that is being done on the jail, which is to finalize and finish out and restore the interior of the building after the fire. There is funding that is in place currently for $50,000 to be able to do that. The idea is that the first floor would be used for an exhibit on convicts, and the second floor would be used to an exhibit for pottery and the pottery industry. The mayor has recommended no funding for this particular item, and historical understands that the Lockwood Matthews Mansion is the priority for their funding for FY24. The third item is a museum collection, and they asked for $75,000. The mayor recommended $10,000. Usually the historical commission asks for $10,000 for this particular item. There is a curator who's helping to store and catalog and do preservation on these particular items. The actual collection itself for the city is worth between $4 and $5 million. And so the $75,000 was to reconfigure some space in the health department to be able to make room for some storage boxes for some of the materials. They understand that $10,000 is the mayor's recommendation, and they have portions of the project that they can move forward with that $10,000. The fourth item is the cemetery site work. They asked for $125,000, and the mayor recommended $10,000. This is work for the Pine Island Cemetery, which is the cemetery in behind Lockwood Matthews. There's approximately 1,000 monuments that are there. And they have used volunteers or had volunteers help them with a number of different projects in and around that Pine Island Cemetery. But they're looking for funding to be able to hire a professional restoration expert who would be able to come in and actually piece together the tombstones that have come apart or are have come misplaced. So the professional would put the tombstones back together and then reset them. They've gone for quotes, and the quotes show that 125,000 is what, 110,000 is what the quote is showing for. So again, they understand that the Lockwood Matthews is the priority this year, and so the 10,000 will help them to put some of those tombstones back together. There's a total of 7 to 80 that they're looking to actually put back together, reconstruct, and set back in the ground. The fifth item is Lockwood Matthews Mansion ADA compliance. They've asked for 75,000. The mayor's recommend 75,000. So the work that's going to happen at the Lockwood Matthews, there's a portion of it where they're looking to do demolition in the basement and build out a room down there for training. The 75,000 would be to finish the design and do the demo in the basement in preparation to build out a training room for that particular area. But the 75,000 is a little bit more important. And the way that it relates to ADA is because there needs to be an additional access point, a point of egress. And so the plan that they would be doing, the design that they would be finishing for the training room would actually focus on that additional egress point to be able to access the basement from an ADA compliance standpoint. And the sixth item, which is their final item, is the Works Progress Administration murals, or the WPA murals. This is what Sabrina was talking about earlier. So the city actually has 35 of these murals. Only 2 of them have not been restored. The 2 that have not been restored are in the Ben Franklin School by the Crystal Theater. And the Historical Commission has funding for restoration of one of the murals, but they don't have the funding for the second restoration. And so they feel like economies of scale and bringing in an expert to be able to do the restoration. They want to do both of those murals at the same time. So they requested $50,000 to do that. And then of course with the Lockwood Matthews commitment from the mayor is recommending 0 funding. So the Historical Commission is comfortable with the mayor's recommendations given the importance of the Lockwood Matthews project for FY24.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, last but not least, Mr. Jim Travers. And Jim, if you could please keep your explanations as brief as possible, that would be appreciated.
No problem, Chairman. Thank you. I probably should be able to get through in about an hour and a half if I summarize each.
We're losing you, Jim.
So thank you. I'll run through as quickly as I can, sir. So the first item is the roadway design and construction. These cover, citywide projects in design and in construction. I think we try to be good stewards of tax dollars in this, and I'll highlight just a couple of recent successes that have come out of this, or will be coming out of this. We've had recent conversations 2 weeks ago with ConnDOT. We will design the Gregory Boulevard roadway improvements based on the East Norwalk TOD from times and past. So we'll pay for that, and DOT will incorporate that in their funds. So they like the design that we showed. We pitched a good effort. So we're just going to pay for the design. They're going to do all the work. We were trying to work that into a grant, but they took it as a separate one because they wanted us to move the community connectivity grant application that we're doing. So we will do a grant application for Stewart's and Stevens intersection improvements. This is a efficiency, and we're going to create a little village feel up there, but there's also a safety component as we're seeing a fair amount of pedestrian crashes that happen up there. But that's another one where we'll get design. And we think that we're going to get grants, but there's other ones, County and Williams, Geneva Road traffic calming improvements. We've met with the neighbors, projects such as that that will get covered under this. The second one was not recommended moving forward in the budget, but it was $250,000 for traffic signal equipment replacement. We did get a grant for the signal at North at Main. This was going to cover the new signal upgrade at North at Camp, which would have completed the corridor of a coordinated network there. We will make interim improvements to that signal to keep it operational. The third is adding to the funds to do, so it's the Gregory Boulevard at 5th Street and Martin, the roundabout improvements that were on there. We have identified and went through a procurement process for a consultant to assist with that. We have some preliminary designs. We're gathering all of the traffic information, traffic counts to make sure the community is satisfied that we have resolved this seasonally. And we will have a community meeting very shortly, but we've also been actively working on a grant that we've had preliminary approval for the build out of it. So in this, again, we're just going to be funding the design of this these intersection improvements. So we believe that we're very close to being successful to having a grant do that installation. The fourth item is new sidewalk construction. These are typically sidewalks that have been identified through the transportation master plan. And I can tell you this is probably the #1 request that we get if you adding these streets and networks into one that it has mobility for all users. The fifth item is traffic signal enhancements. It is $60,000. These are improvements such as for the aging infrastructure. So we are able to keep the signal at Camp and North functioning by this type of funds, but these type of funds also install things, added equipment like RRFBs. Today, we did install a set of RRFBs on Hunters, Hunters Lane. So it's those type of improvements to the traffic signal network, either for pedestrian improvements or vehicular improvements, that this fund restores some of that older equipment. The next item 6 is Seaview Avenue improvements. So this is $100,000. We did kick off a very successful community meeting to start the Seaview Avenue improvements. This is to further advance that. We will be back in front of the community in May. We're picking the location now to do the second design charrette and update them as well, but very excited about the outcome that's coming out. We think that we've resolved many of the concerns that they brought to us in the first community meeting, so that you will be satisfying that one. Number 7 is a continuation of our Safe Routes to School program. One of the things that we get constantly is when school's in session is identifying these areas around schools, and this will further that. We just recently finished the sidewalks on Highland that we added a mile's worth of sidewalks connecting the entirety of Highland, and it's 3 schools. So that's a continuation of that program. Number 8 is a new item that was in, excuse me, that was it's in our budget. It's $500,000. We are going to create a multi-purpose track in the backfield of Tracy School that will in peak times of PM dismissal and AM drop off will allow for queuing back there. So it'll get the traffic off of the street. I have to say that neighbors have been very vocal about concerns, and we've been out there numerous times in the PM pickup. They're just stuck in their houses. They can't leave. There's so many people and there's just not enough queuing capacity. So this will create that queuing capacity, but will also be a value add to the neighborhood. We'll create it by creating a track that allows to go back to the school. So we'll be working with the school on that creation. We have had some preliminary conversations with the assistant superintendent and the principal. So those will continue on and we'll have that one come in. Number 9 is the continuation of a very exciting project that I have, and I see a background photo in Councilman Hoovelman's photo. This is the continuation of the Wall Street corridor improvements for phase 1, 2, and 3. Now, phase 1 will be starting construction this year. That's the East Wall Street section between Brook and Main. But this is to further that and cover additional items. We have secured over $9 million of funds to date. We have a $6.7 million grant that is preliminary approved and will be going back up next week for the final approval. So we are on our way to having this 40-year plan into a reality soon. The next one is the pavement markings and signage. This is a every other year program, $200,000. This allows us to replace and refresh the existing pavement markings along with, as well as crosswalks, road signage, any of those typical things that happen within the right-of-way, public right-of-way. The item number 11 is a new item. It's the East Howard Avenue corridor and intersection improvement projects. This will go from Eversley all the way up to Cannon. We did request $750,000 to do design. We were approved for $300,000. We will work with, should this make its way through, we will work to see what portion of that will get us to what percentage of design. But it's a very busy corridor that handles a tremendous amount of traffic. It is not a good feel for a pedestrian. It is by our town green. We think that we will be able to introduce a plan, but you will, with this deficiency here, you will see this item come in front of you again next year for continuation. The next is the Norwalk River Valley Trail. For this is, we are looking, we have a number of sections done. This is, some repair and maintenance of the existing sections, as well as look at continuation on, we will be wrapping up to Route 123 in the next month or two. And there'll be some just bits that we need to pick in from here, but then also have the next section that's going to come after that will get us to Perry. The next is a new item. It's streetlights. We did not have this as an item in TMP has responsibility for streetlights. And this came into a realization this past year when we were driving down East Avenue and one of the streetlights was tilted, and we had the crews take a look at it, and the base of it was rusted through. So this will provide us an opportunity to have that, that light is still non-existent today. We didn't have funds to replace that. So there'll be funds for those, as well as give us an inventory of what we have and a conditions assessment of those fixtures that are out in the public right away. The next item was an item that was a new item. Unfortunately, it was not chosen. We will look at ways that we could maybe change, move money after, throughout the year. But I think this is valuable. This was to create a safety database. We are in the end results of really creating a database that is going to rival that of our cities such as Cambridge, where we're looking at predictive analysis of where our crashes are occurring, how we could mitigate them. We will come to the council with a presentation of this. I think it's going to be pretty impressive. But this would be to add to that database to ensure that we have a safe road system. And the next item, continuation of protected crosswalks. These are the RFBs, and as such that I talked about before. But in this particular instance, we are partnering with the health department for a raised crosswalk on Union at the NRVT. So we're very excited that they found value in this, and we're going to do this together with this one. The next item was one that was not funded. It's a pedestrian crosswalk at 40 Cross Street. We've recently created a missing connection, from on Cross Street that's going to get us to a new section of the NRVT. We need a safe way for pedestrians to cross the street here. This item was in front of you last year. Will be in front of you again next year, as we believe this is an important component for pedestrian safety along this corridor. The item number 17 is Hunt Street sidewalks. So we've been working on a design. We've designed sidewalks from which all the way up to Highland, those will be installed by DPW when they do a paving of the street. This will get the Hunt Street section down to Rowayton. We're working on this design, so this will be installation dollars that will bring that to fruition. I could say that we have we had a very very active, very loud couple community meetings for people who are really supportive of and looking at the need of sidewalks in this really tight community. And then the next items are just outlying years. They're new, but we just wanted to point you into the direction of really where we see our investments starting to come in the next years. So North Main Street improvements, we're putting that in. That'll be an outlying year. Next year's funding, we think that we really see an opportunity to make a reinvestment into that section of the corridor. We'll follow that up the following year with Washington Street improvements. Again, really think that the time is come that we make a continued investment there, followed by Rowayton Village improvements, and then followed by Calf Pasture Beach corridor improvements. That was one of the items that was identified in the transportation master plan. So we're trying to make sure that we are really identifying and directing funds that were that were brought to our attention by the community through these processes such as that. So I am available to answer any questions you have, and I spoke as fast as I can.
Seeing no hands. So do you mind also covering the parking authority while we got you, Jim?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Which ones do I have in front of the parking authority? So
parking garages and revenue control equipment.
Okay. So the parking garages and the revenue control equipment, parking garages is for the continued, we do conditions assessments of each of our facilities. They are being, the conditions assessment are being wrapped up now. I'm actually having a meeting with a consultant next week. Those will identify the priorities in which we need to maintain these assets in a state of good repair. And the revenue control equipment are for new parks systems, or new payment systems in both the Maritime Garage and the Sono Garage. I think those systems are long overdue. They break, I think, more than they're working. And I think that we have an opportunity to really create a first-class environment with these two destinations and get people in and out in a much more quicker and efficient manner.
Any questions for Larry? Okay. I believe, thank you, Larry. Very done very well. I believe I've covered everything. I think we've gone through everyone. I don't believe I missed anybody. So that brings us to the grand finale, and that is the vote. Ms. Smith proposed this item, and there was an amendment. So I will now call for the vote. All in favor for the item as amended, please raise your hand and signify yes. And that is unanimous. Great. Okay, now moving on to the longest agenda item I've seen in 10 years. Sounds like, looks like a lot of lawyers were involved in this process here. Okay, that's B1. Authorize Harry W. Rilling to execute a land disposition and development agreement, the LDA, together with any and all agreements and documents required thereunder with Sono TOD2 LLC, the developer, for purposes of conveying a portion of 30 Monroe Street consisting of 46,094 square feet identified as concept property lines and as and when shown in a certain map entitled zoning location of it's a long name. Topographic survey 17 Chestnut prepared for Sono TOD 2 LLC, Norwalk, Connecticut, dated March 14, 2023, and prepared by William W. Seymour and Associates, PC. The city parcel, said city parcel will be consolidated with land of the developer identified on the tax assessor's records as NBL 255/6, 225 57 and 25522, the developer property together with the city property collecting the project site for purposes of constructing within the project site a mixed-use development containing commercial space, residential units, structured parking facility, 60 of which will be dedicated to the use of commuters of the South Norwalk train station, recreational area, and related improvements to the project pursuant to the LDA term sheets enclosed with the agenda. Wow. This got Darren written all over it. Let me tell you. So yes, Mr. Badoli, I see, Tom, you got a question?
I just want to move the item if you wanted somebody to move it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Livingston. Okay, so let's hear about it.
All right, good deal. So if you recall, last month we introduced the project. This is obviously continued from our discussions about a little bit over a year ago regarding the project at 1517 Chestnut Street. Before we get into the LDA terms, which is the topic of tonight, I wanted to have Spinnaker just provide a really brief presentation just to catch you guys back up on some of the project details and then answer any questions from there. So I'll kick it over to either Matt or Henry to start it off here.
Great. Thanks, Brian. Matt Evertson with Spinnaker. Henry Conroy of Spinnaker is with us as well as Colin from Binefield Architecture. But I'll bring you through quickly if I can share my screen here. Give you a feel for this is just kind of a satellite image of the area. You guys are all familiar with it. Kind of police station all the way to the right here, Monroe Street, Chestnut Street, Henry Street. And this is kind of the project area that is a combination of privately owned parcels and a portion of a city parcel that we're discussing. And this will give you the relationship between kind of the privately owned parcels here that aren't hashed, and then the proposed portion of the 30 Monroe Street city-owned parcel that would be included in the combined public-private partnership. And changing orientation a little bit here. It's the same Chestnut Street to the bottom, Henry Street to the left. This is kind of the site. It will include 200 apartment units, about 260 or 290 parking spaces, 60 of which are designated for public use. And I'll kind of from there I'll kind of scroll through. This is a set, plan set that's actually in front of zoning and peer reviews right now, subject obviously to your consent. So there's a pretty drastic topography change from Chestnut Street coming up Henry Street and going towards the train station here. So this is where we change kind of viewpoint. Chestnut's now on the right, Henry's down the bottom of the screen. And this is the lowest portion at Chestnut Street. And we will kind of line the street with active uses, but also entry into this lower portion of the garage. And we do have a public, kind of public, kind of private, public realm space proposed here, depending on the use of this ground floor retail tenant, how that'll function between the new proposed building and the existing historic building that was renovated a few years back. And then as we proceed kind of up Henry Street, we're introducing some direct entry residential townhouse units with an entry off of Henry Street to a kind of mezzanine level of parking. And then as we continue up at the train station level, we're treating kind of the frontage facing the train station as kind of a public right of way, providing some active uses, retail, and also the entry to the upper level garage, which will include those commuter spaces. And as we continue above the parking level, you got your typical apartment floor, but this level has some courtyard plaza for the residents. And then we'll continue up to the typical floor, and there's 5 levels above parking. And I'm happy to share some elevations, but I think more impactful will be the kind of current version of the rendering here that you see. This is looking. This is looking up Henry Street with Chestnut going toward the right there. And there's a second version here, kind of more closer up.
I'm sorry, Darlene, do you have your hand up? Do you have a question?
I do.
Please.
So could you explain a little bit more? You said, I think on Chestnut, you had some interactive spaces or.
Sure. So
So what-
the plans evolved a little bit, and I know you were involved greatly in some of the early versions. I think this is an improvement. We've previously the amenity for the residents was on the corner here. We decided to swap that for a more active retail space that would ideally help anchor that corner, and we shifted the kind of resident leasing office and amenity to the kind of opposite side there. But I think it kind of helps anchor the corner with more kind of a more public presence.
Okay. So my concern too, and I know Jim Travers gave a pretty good detail of some of his efforts with parking and traffic, but that street is horrible. So what are we? This seems like a concern to me, and I'd like to at least have a more detailed conversation at some point about this, even though it may pass or whatever. I think there needs to be some more conversation about this because traffic is awful on this street. And I don't see it getting any better without a plan sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and I could jump into, if Darlene, are you done? You good?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so I just wanted to address that. So I know we've been talking about that as well, and we've been working closely with Jim Travers and Matt, and I'll talk a little bit more about it within the context of the grant package that we were able to receive from DECD, which will help enable, infrastructure improvements to mitigate the impacts of this development, the $6 million that we received. But before that, concurrent to this whole discussion, we've been working with traffic consultants. So they're actually currently looking at various options to the one-way or two-way of Chestnut, along with Matt's team at Spinnaker. And so the way that the LDA is structured, so that's obviously something that's going to be part of the zoning entitlement process. Jim Travers is going to be looking at that in detail. The way the LDA is structured is that we're requiring the developer to demonstrate that this project can work with a one-way or two-way configuration. And then obviously if a city project should occur, to do a more significant change to Chestnut Street, that can be enabled with the funds that we have from DECD. We're pretty confident that that's going to be it's definitely it functions, and we're waiting on the full traffic analysis, which Matt could talk about a little bit more. But we're very focused on that as part of this whole process, and the larger discussion will occur as part of the zoning and entitlement process with Jim Travers.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll just add that as part of our project at 10 Monroe Street, there was a condition of that approval to do on behalf of the city, to do a one-way Chestnut Street study, which we prepared. Mr. Travers and his team had some feedback, and as part of this project, we're going to expand upon that study.
Okay. I would just appreciate, I mean, I know, you do what you can as far as informing the community, but this sort of thing that what's happening right now in South Norwalk, I think there needs to be a few more meetings or just opportunities for residents to learn and give some input or just talk about what's going on, because it's a lot.
Yeah, and Darlene, so to that point, exactly, part of the
by the time you start this project, it will be number 3, right? It'll be 2 going on simultaneously almost, or one after the other. And so it's already impacting traffic. So.
Yeah, and to that point, exactly, the grant actually and obviously just as part of good practice, we're going to be doing 2 public outreach meetings, at least for the design process. We've actually put out the RFP for a design consultant.
Okay.
Hopefully going to have responses in a month, and we'll be able to pick up that conversation similar to what we had during the South Norwalk TOD planning effort.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
So Brian, I'm happy to continue to flip through, but I think I gave a pretty decent kind of summary of the site plan and some kind of conceptual images here to give you a kind of baseline for the LDA discussion.
Yeah, that's great. And I think, just picking up from there, in terms of process, so obviously what gets considered by the council is the disposition of land that we're talking about as it's city-owned property. From there, the project moves through the entitlement process, and in that there's a detailed design review phase that's both with planning and zoning and also our agency. So there's a lot of opportunities to kind of take a look and work with them on design. But I kind of wanted to pick up from there on the deal, sort of talk about it at a high level, and then I'll have Darren Callahan's here to talk about, kind of fill in the gaps from a legal technical perspective. But obviously, the materials that are included in your packet today are the terms of the deal, the land disposition agreement, both in terms of the business terms as well as the legal terms to effectuate this transaction. Included in there is the detailed map of the proposed conveyance, the requisite easements, and all the other terms. And this was obviously a continuation of the project we discussed, not only at the last meeting, but as I mentioned, last spring at the ECD. Some of the things, as we've gone through due diligence together with Spinnaker, taking a look further at the site have changed just a bit. The main one being the 2-phase versus 1-phase, which we talked about at the last meeting. But in terms of the overall business terms, the parcel is being acquired at appraised fair market value of $4.6 million. There is a structured credit of $1,050,000. And what that is related to, a big part of this project, and you'll note in the LDA terms, is the replacement of the 60 parking spaces that, are being purchased. But we still need to make sure that public parking is available. And that $1 million was calculated just to kind of walk you through that. The cost of structured parking is obviously expensive. It's valued at about $35,000 a space for this transaction. So it's 60 spaces. That's about $2.1 million to construct that parking. The sort of delta is that the cash flow, or the money that the parking authority was receiving, if we value that at fair market value as well, was only around about $1 million. So that covered about half of the actual cost to structure parking. So what is the transaction has been structured to, basically apply a credit of $1 million to that, and it's parceled out in performance payments. And I think that's a key component of this deal, so that the money will be escrowed and will be paid out as the parking is replaced. Obviously, as we look in the history, we want to make sure that the parking is replaced as it said. So we've baked in a number of performance provisions in that, and Darren could talk about that a little bit further. But the interesting thing is, what this whole project does is it unlocks a $6 million grant from the Department of Economic and Community Development. I'm going to share my screen real quick so you can kind of see how that's all tied together with this, and how we structured this deal, because it's what I would consider an innovative financing plan in order to effectuate the requisite infrastructure improvements, as we were talking about just earlier. So this is the grant package effectively, but it also represents a few things that I'm referring to in the LDA. So the total infrastructure investment that we're actually anticipating here, or the total value as the budget looks, is a $12 million project. You have $6 million from the DECD grant. There was the $3 million, which was mentioned earlier, actually from last year's capital budget, that was allocated as the 50% match requirement to obtain these funds. The value of land, which is really just the value of the land. One of the roads that we're proposing is a reconstructed Station Place, which is the road that abuts the train station right now, where buses currently access and cut through. But we're able to actually credit that as donated value to the project, because we needed to get to the $6 million, because the city, we wanted to limit the amount of cash the city would actually have to contribute to this deal. Our agency actually received a $500,000 brownfield cleanup grant from the EPA, and the match that we've used is getting credited to this deal as well. And then here's that $1.05 million that I was talking about. So the interesting thing is, the credit is actually being used to leverage some grant funds. So the innovative financing plan helps us kind of reconcile that with an overall financial plan. Going a little bit further on, past the financing of the deal, we've been working through a period of due diligence with the developer, with Spinnaker, and there's some environmental contamination on site based on the history, sort of in the area. And what we've agreed upon is a potential $250,000 credit should we be unsuccessful in obtaining additional grant funding to help with that extra cleanup that goes above and beyond our current grant. We're actually putting in for a grant to cover everything next Friday. So we're pretty pretty confident, but it's obviously a competitive process and we're gonna have to see what happens. So that might be a moot point, but it is currently in the deal. We've also been, obviously, as I mentioned before, working closely across all the city departments to deploy these funds, to look at the transportation impacts. And I think one of the nice things about this project and what we really pitched to the state is equity as a part of this project, and making sure that that the impacts aren't just felt by the local residents. That was something we heard loud and clear during our South Norwalk TOD study. So one of the things we baked into the grant proposal was $1 million in affordable housing improvements. So, helping adjacent properties like Columbus Court over there, help them with some of the deferred maintenance, structural issues, roofing, and just really trying to improve the whole area versus just obviously this project site. So I think this is really an interesting model for the state of Connecticut. And, it took a bit of convincing and negotiating with the state for them to kind of understand the nexus between, providing infrastructure money for our project versus understanding that a project has community impact and trying to help mitigate that with funds. So we've really structured this so we have, $5 million, not just for infrastructure, but also for affordable housing improvements. So that's sort of, the high level terms of the deal. And one thing that I brought up at the last meeting, but I want to emphasize again tonight, this is how this deal sort of differs from past P3s, or how does it set a standard for how we should be doing P3 public-private partnerships or P3s moving forward. And, I think it's really focused around the concept of risk mitigation, how it's different from POCO or any sort of other projects around the country that, have, had relative issues. I think, it's really an exercise, and Darren can talk a little bit about how we've been balancing in risk minimization. It's obviously real estate, and I'd be remiss to say that there's no risk involved in real estate, particularly when you sell a property, but it's not just like you sell your house and you move on. It's a property that you've sold, and now that you want, you want to make sure something that you wanted when you sold it happens on it. So there's a lot of legal requirements that we have to kind of unpack and do. So it's, like I said, it's really an exercise in risk minimization. And I think Darren's done a great job, and we've been, thinking about this through and through with our outside counsel for quite a long time. But what I really want to do is just highlight some key differences, because I think they're very important. And I think it's a good step forward in terms of how we transact these deals moving forward. So in terms of risk mitigation for the transaction, you'll see in the LDA term sheet, there's a combination of various escrows, performance bonds, and personal guarantees from Clay Fowler and Spinnaker themselves. So there's a lot of incentives to make sure that we not only get the project that we want, but it's done in accordance with the terms of the land disposition agreement. It's definitely very important to note a key difference is that in this project, the developer is paying fair market value for the property as opposed to being given land. I think also, one thing that's being created as part of this is an escrow account, as I mentioned before, to issue performance payments. So there's going to be $1 million held until we get our parking back. It'll be dispersed in increments as reflected in the terms, but it's still an incentive to make sure that we're getting what we said, we all agreed upon in this transaction. And one of the things too is that the deal is structured to only convey the property once zoning approvals are in place and there's a permit ready letter issued. So we're not looking to stagnate this project. The developer, we're not, they won't be in default before they go into that. And Darren can speak a little bit more to that. I can't, not mention we're working with a thoroughly vetted Norwalk-based company with a demonstrated history of performance. And as I mentioned before, I do want to say, and Darren, this is your sort of introduction, so you can get ready, but I really just appreciate all the work Darren did on this, especially as John mentioned, writing that resolution language alone was probably a very fun exercise. But these are very technical exercises, and we've really worked together to figure out a way, and you've done a great job of thinking through a lot of details, not only in terms of this deal, but also in terms of, how we interface with the grant and their requirements. So I'll just kick it over to Darren if you're ready, if you want to talk about some of the more technical things in the LDA that I might have missed.
Yeah, no, thanks, Brian. You covered quite a bit of stuff. So it's been a long meeting. I'll just try to be really brief. We focused on, again, risk mitigation, and also making sure that this project has a timeline that is both fluid, but the project is, started and completed in a timely manner. So there's two goalposts that we worked hard on. So just project timeline, just to jump off at zoning. As you know, the developer's already in zoning. The estimate for zoning approval, or at least what the contract will require, absent certain excusable delays, will be 3 months from execution of the LDA. So we're jumping off pretty quick just as far as getting land use approvals. The closing we have phased in around 9 months from execution of the LDA. That's just because there's some work to do on the land that's going to be conveyed to the developer by the city, but the RDA will do the work pursuant to a deep grant. My guess is that the closing will actually occur, before that 9-month mark. And that puts the building permits being pulled by the developer around the 14-month mark post execution. So sometime around, late spring next year, they're pulling a building permit and putting a shovel in the ground, which is pretty exciting. So foundation permit, they'll put the foundation in, finish up their contract documents, and pull the building permits sometime, maybe midsummer. I'm guessing. Matt can correct me if I'm wrong. And then the construction timeline is basically 24 to 30 months out from there. So quick calculation, it's about 3 to 3.5 years, give or take, timeline to CO. And when we have the public starting to be able to park in a structured parking garage, we put it in an outside date of 5 years, absent, really situations that are just completely, would occur that you couldn't contemplate. As outside time parameter, we built those in specifically to address sort of things that could just happen in the construction process. For example, an easy example would be an appeal of a zoning approval. But so those are the goalposts we worked on from a time standpoint. We won't convey the property until all the zoning approvals have been obtained and the developer is satisfied with them, and that there's no longer a right to terminate the contract. As also mentioned, the contract, obviously, not only any termination provisions will have to expire, at least for convenience. No pending default will, it also have to be fully compliant with terms of the contract at the time of the closing. So there'll be customary closing conditions for a project of this nature in the agreement. They actually get quite extensive, but the main ones will be that they'll have to have their financing in place, their land use approvals satisfied, and that any termination rights to terminate unilaterally will have to have expired. Brian went over the funding for the project. I would just kind of piggyback on that slightly, that we are crediting back just north of $1 million to purchase the parking in the garage. So we're getting full value, and we're purchasing back with a portion of that full value, a little north of $1 million to purchase that. And the way we're doing it really facilitates the securing the obligation. So it is an escrow, as Brian mentioned. We will be advancing against the escrow at 20% completion of construction increments at 20% clips. So 20% completion construction, $200,000, 40%, $400,000, so forth and so on. But those will be advances that won't be earned until the time the CO is actually issued. So they'd be subject to clawback if for some reason that didn't occur. Additionally, we're securing it with a performance bond in the same sum of $1.5 million and a personal construction guarantee that has no dollar limit on it. So we have multiple forms of securing the project, and we had to think a little bit out of the box to do it. Brian, you may have mentioned this, but the developer will be providing temporary parking during construction. The lot will be available, through closing and probably until they start to mobilize. But before we lose access to the lot, temporary parking has to be available. And I believe that there's agreement on location for that. The actual parking itself will be secured by an easement. The easement will, all mortgages will be subordinated to the easement. So it'll be first and right encumbrance on the property. It won't be subject to foreclosure. And that's pretty much it. I mean, Brian, you covered most of it. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I don't know if I can. Yeah, I'll be brief because it's late, but I spent a fair amount of time with Brian and Darren, and just 2 points. One, I really want to commend both of them. One of the things we talked about when we started this is to make sure we did not end up in another POCO situation. And I have to say, you guys have, every time we talk about it, you guys have done everything in your power to avoid that type of situation. I really appreciate that. I think it's really done a great service to the city with that. I also want to just commend Brian for your financial acumen for once again putting together a deal like this in terms of your financial wizardry and making this the grant work. So I think we're very fortunate to have you there, and not to make this a total love fest. I think you guys did a great job. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
You actually bring up a good point that I just wanted to jump on to, Tom, is just make it, Darren might have talked about it. The grant and the project are intrinsically linked. And I think that's an important thing. We talked about it a little bit last time, but the grant is dependent upon the delivery of these units as well. So there's a lot of terms in there that are actually related to that. And we concurrently to negotiating this deal, we had to negotiate with the state in terms of what that looked like, because we were actually one of the only projects that was funded for infrastructure. So in the event of a default, how are they going to come back for infrastructure? So we got a lot of relief in that regard, which we're really happy with. And it was really a tiresome effort to get to that point. But some of the things that we were concerned about, to Tom's point, we're alleviated. Now we have about a 10-year performance period on that. So we're feeling pretty good. So I don't know if there's anything, Darren, you wanted to specifically mention just for everyone's benefit here on top of that.
I don't want to get too down in the weeds, but we were able to also mitigate, and it took quite a bit of effort, and Brian leading the charge there. But we were able to really mitigate the exposure on the grant side as well. Should there be unforeseen situations. So I think we've structured a deal that quite frankly mitigates risk as much as either Brian or I could figure out how to do.
Thanks.
Darlene, I see you have your hand up.
Yes. So I really just wanted to I guess I'll jump on this love boat of Tom's. But I really want to commend Brian and his team and just for the whole project. It's about the community and the fact that you were able to really help with Columbus Court, because they are in the TOD, and you listen to the concerns of the residents in the area. So I really have to commend you on that, Brian. And I appreciate that. And I think that's something that needs to really be known, that we spoke and you listened. And because of that, Columbus Court will see some positive change.
Thank you. And more to come in that regard.
Yep.
Yeah, I know I bust chops, but you guys really did pay attention to detail. And I don't know if all of you know, this project's been, started a long time ago, and to see it here and as clear and buttoned up as it is, it's a huge task. And so far, you guys are doing a great job. Any other questions? Okay. Mr. Livingston moved the item. Now I will be now calling for the vote. All in favor, please raise your hand and signify yes.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Great. Okay. And brings us to item B2. It's the referral of advance of city parcel referred to in section 2B1 of the agenda to the Planning and Zoning Commission for an 824 review and report. I don't know how much in the weeds we need to get into this, but I guess we're requesting that P and Planning and Zoning review this as part of the 824. Anyone want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, John, just really briefly, because it's the sale of city-owned property, it requires a review and report by the Planning and Zoning Commission for consistency with the POCD.
Any questions?
You want a motion, John?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Livingston. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Great. Okay, thank you, Darren. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everyone that worked on this.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, item 3, Brian, maybe stick around for a second until you leave. Oh, there he is. This item came onto the agenda prematurely. It should be on next month's agenda. Is that correct, Brian?
Yeah, that's correct. You just did the hearing today, and then you'll consider this at the next month.
Okay, so if no objections, I will now call for a motion to table this item to our next ECD meeting. All in favor? Yeah, sorry, did someone say something? No? Oh, so I thought I heard something. Okay, the motion passes. The item is tabled to the next meeting. Okay, item C, and that is authorize Mayor Harry to really enter into a lease agreement and such other documents necessary to lease 30 parking spaces from the Norwalk Erie, number 588 Fraternal Order of Eagles, Inc., for 2 years for an annual rent of $12,600 with 3 options to extend the term for a period of 1 year each at mutual agreed upon rent. Account number to be decided. Jess, will you be speaking to this item?
Yes, I will be. And Darren, yet again, has helped with his magic on this one as well. So we've been working with the library over the last number of years to be able to think about the expansion that I mentioned was in the FY26 proposed capital budget. And we've worked with Stantec over the last number of years to be able to put some renderings together. But regardless of the expansion or not, the library, we've been working really closely with the library board, and they are in need of additional parking. And so we've been able to, with the help of Darren, secure an agreement with the Eagles Club, which is right directly behind the Belden main library, to be able to lease out or secure 30 of their parking spots for a total of $35 a month for the parking, which equals $12,600 for the year. So that funding or that cost would actually come out of the library's operating budget. And they are very excited to have the additional parking spaces because they feel like they are under pressure a little bit for providing parking. The strategic plan that was done a number of years ago actually pointed out that the library patrons find the biggest obstacle and barrier to getting to that library is the parking. And so the library has been working very hard to be able to understand different ways to be able to secure additional parking. So, we're really grateful for the Eagles to be able to work with us in a meaningful way to allow us to agree to leasing some of the parking. And the library is very excited about the opportunity to be able to lease that parking as well. And so I guess the question is, how does it relate to the option on 11 Belden, which is the property that is next to 3 Belden, the first taxing district property that our business development center is in. And so the city has yet to determine if they are going to exercise that option or not. We actually don't need to do that until August the 31st of 2023. And so there is additional time to be able to figure out if that option will be exercised or not. But the parking is really independent of that option to a certain extent, where the library knows that they need more parking to be able to bring more families in and have more patrons at that space itself. So Again, really happy to work with Darren and really grateful for the Eagles to be able to offer the city that rate for parking, and they've been really gracious in working with us. So Darren, if you wanted to fill in any gaps or if anyone has any questions, Darren and I can answer.
Darlene, is your hand still up for this?
Yeah, so, you said the parking would cost how much? 12,000 a year?
Yeah, it's $12,600.
A year. And is that, did it have a term on it or? It's
Yep.
pretty, go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Darren, what is the term? I think it's the term of the agreement. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
It's a 2-year agreement. The rent's stable for the first 2 years. And what we basically agreed to, or what the deal was, is that it could be renewed on the same terms and conditions except for rent, which would have to be mutually agreed upon. So both parties would have an opportunity to come back and it'd make a change to that amount.
Okay.
Whether that,
Goes up or down.
Couldn't be in the same amount.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Is the library going to be charging patrons of the library for parking with these
We
funds?
actually, so the parking lot right now for the library has gates that are LAS managed and maintained. And during COVID, we did not charge for parking in the library parking lot. So I think that's yet to be determined. It hasn't been, we have a little bit of time to be able to figure that out, but the infrastructure is there to be able to charge for that parking.
Maybe we could make this a wash as far as cost. Jess, I don't see an account number. Does this have to go to like finance? What's
No, it doesn't need to go to finance because it's not an ARPA. It's not an ARPA item. And there is actually an operating account that was provided by Sherelle Harris for the library, and it should have made it into the agenda. Let me just take a look.
and if not, will it be there?
It 100%, yeah, it will 100% be there for a common council because it is in our email. And if we did not include it, it was just a mistype in, no, there is an account number there, account number 016200-5265.
Yeah, the problem is my memo, I think, had as a blank. My apologies.
Oh, that's our fault. Sorry about that, Darren.
So it'll be there Tuesday. Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Any other questions? All right, all in favor, please raise your hand and say yes. Unanimous, great. All right, I want to thank everyone for all your time. I know it's been a long night, but we got a lot done. Appreciate you all. That being said, do I have a motion to adjourn? Thank
Motion
you,
to
Ms. Shanahan. All in favor? All right.
No, I want to say some more.
Sweet dreams.
Thank you, everyone.